Channel 4 presents live from the Olympic Club in San Francisco, California, the final round of the 1987 United States Open Golf. Hello, everyone. I'm Roger Twibel, and we welcome you to our final round coverage of this prestigious event. Some 3 to 4 hours from now, the final twosome of the day will be making their way up the fairway here at 18, that being Tom Watson and Keith Clearwater. The weather here in San Francisco on this Sunday morning is bright sunshine right now, but earlier today, a lot of fog, some drizzle, and very cold climates. We're looking forward to a fabulous final round, and if history dictates itself, we should be back on Monday. I'd like to introduce right now, also working with me is Ben Wright. And Ben, there have been 2 previous United States Opens here at the Olympic Club.
Yes, indeed, Roger. 2 historic playoffs, of course, in which the outsiders won on each occasion. And it would be a brave man who would bet against a playoff for tomorrow over 18 holes, because 20 players are bunched within 4 shots of the lead. Jack Nicklaus said some prophetic words, maybe, on Wednesday when he said that it might be a plodder who would win this championship. There are a lot of plodders in there amongst the leading groups. To mention just a couple, Scott Simpson, Lenny Clements, John Mahaffey, all guys who grind away quietly and get the job done. Larry Mize is another who goes about his business very quietly.
Tom Watson, the man who is leading this golf tournament, last won a United States Open in 1982, not far from here at Pebble Beach. When we left you yesterday, Watson was still on the golf course. He made a beautiful approach shot to the par 4 18th hole, and he had a very good putt for birdie.
This would be a tremendous birdie if he could make it. Peace of mind, big swing. He's got it. That's going to do wonders for him. Absolute wonders. What a note to end on.
And so at the end of the day, the leaderboard read like this, because Tom Watson had grabbed the outright lead at 2 under par by 1 shot from Keith Clearwater and Scott Simpson, the only 2 other players under par. Alone at level par is Lenny Clements, who's never finished better than 3rd in a tournament in the United States. And then a bunch of 6 players at 1 over par: John Mahaffey, Spain's Seve Ballesteros, Masters champion Larry Mize, Ben Crenshaw seeking his first United States Open victory, the West German Bernhard Langer, and the black golfer Jim Thorpe. Now, you might think that Tomi Nakajima of Japan should be on that leaderboard, but a terrible fate befell him at the 18th hole last evening.
Now, Nakajima lying down awfully poorly for his second shot at the 18th. If he were to finish with 3 straight bogeys, he's going to be absolutely destroyed, and that looks favorite to do so. He's really in a horrible position in the trees on the right.
That's a problem, Ben. If you hit it right at 18, you get in the rough, you have those big fir trees which hang out over, and Nakajima found those.
They're trying to shake the golf ball of Tomi Nakajima down out of the tree, and until that ball has been identified, he cannot make another move.
Well, despite the lad's efforts, the ball did not come down. It was lost. Tomi Nakajima took a double bogey 6 and finished at 2 over par.
In less than an hour, summer will begin. And the bright blue skies and the sunshine above means that summer is indeed here in California. The players began early today. And let's take a look at some of the shots from earlier this afternoon at the U.S. Open.
Par 5. Oh, now, oh, holy mackerel, what a shot.
That sure makes a nice, easy start. When you get one, you kick in.
Didn't miss the eagle by much, and he tapped in for a birdie. Scott Simpson putted just a few moments ago, and this is on tape. Only a shot out of the lead until this. He's tied for the lead. Tom Watson, we saw him put his second shot just through the back of the green here in the second, and believe it or not, his chip shot ran way past the hole here, so this is for a 4. Great try, but another stroke drop, 2 holes played, 2 shots dropped by Watson. Now Keith Clearwater for the bogey.
Pushed it.
No. This is tough stuff now,
Pushed
because
it.
obviously the nerves of the 4th round of an Open have gotten to young Keith Clearwater, who shot 64 yesterday.
We have 5 players tied for the lead at 1 over par. The one you're looking at, Scott Simpson, Tom Watson, Bernhard Langer, Mac O'Grady, who is through 13 holes, and Larry Mize. And Seve Ballesteros has just gone to 2 over par with a birdie at the 7th hole, and now to live golf.
And this is Scott Simpson at the 7th hole. Simpson 1 over par for the championship. The 7th, a very short 288-yard par 4. And like all the players atop the leaderboard as this day began, and even though it's a beautiful, bright sunshine day here in Northern California, the players have not been winning, but the course has been winning so far. Joining Ben and myself at our broadcast position is Fred Couples, who is a former Tournament Players Championship winner and won the Byron Nelson earlier this year in the playoff, as we look at Tom Watson on the tee at 7. Fred, have players been trying to drive this particular hole?
Right, and it looks like Tom's hit one right up the middle. If it goes, it might be on. And he's got a very easy chip from there. You can throw the ball past the pin, and it'll come back to the hole.
There's the leaderboard, and look at that. 1 over par for Watson, Langer, Mize, Mac O'Grady, who is at 1 over through 13. And Fred, do you think if he posts that score, he could be the winner?
I would believe so. I've played just a few of these, but I would think 1 over is a great score.
Fred will be, of course, going over to play not only in the British Open, but also the Scottish Open this year.
Right, looking forward to going over there.
And that's Mark Calcavecchia at 18. Mark, who lost to Fred in that playoff at the Byron Nelson. He's a wonderful short iron player, isn't he, Fred?
As this just shows, he's got great hands, and he's playing well here, too.
And how did you play today?
I shot 5 over. I'm not too disappointed with the week. Played very tough, but I finished 11 over par.
And Fred, you're going to play in the Scottish Open as well as the Open at Muirfield, and so the fans in Britain are going to have a good look at you in a few weeks.
Right, I've enjoyed the British Open, and the Scottish Open here is on a great course, so I'm looking forward to 2 weeks over there.
You're looking right now at Craig Stadler. Craig got off to a wonderful start, Ben. He eagled the first hole, and the birdie the second hole was 3 under through 3.
Unfortunately, we don't know exactly what he is right now, because we are relying on the pictures from ABC and the information. We hear that Stadler is 7 over, so he will remain that way. That was a birdie opportunity, so he will finish the championship at 7 over par, and he's looking rather rueful. He doesn't exactly hide his emotions. So he's shot at 287, and we just hear that Scott Simpson has birdied the 7th hole to go back to level par, and he leads the championship once again.
And we're looking at Mark Calcavecchia pacing the green at 18. He has that putt for par. Mark is a former caddy. He's always, of course, been a player, but it was interesting that he used to caddy Fred for, was it Kenny Knox?
Ken Green.
Ken Green, excuse me.
They were roommates or teammates at Florida, and 1 week Mark caddied for Ken, and he went out and won.
And we're told that Mac O'Grady has now gone to even par through 14.
And I'm going to stick my neck out right now and say that he's going to win the championship. That's not much of a gamble, really, Fred.
Well, Mac's got some great length, and the hole's coming up. If he can just get the ball in the fairway, which is tough to do, but I would think he can get in, and his big worry now is the 17th hole.
And that's Scott Simpson taking the lead, as I reported just a few moments ago. That was on videotape at the 7th hole with a birdie to go to level par. But, of course, now O'Grady has tied him through 14. And he also birdied the 13th hole, so O'Grady is really making his mark right now. We saw him coming into the golf course, Roger, this morning. He asked for some words of wisdom as you look at Bernhard Langer.
And Mac did get some words of wisdom from both Ben and myself, and in return we got a golf ball with red and blue dots on it. And we look now at Seve Ballesteros putting for birdie at the 8th hole, just to get him to 1 over par for the championship.
Really quick down that slope.
It is, but that's why he's a champ.
So Seve goes to 1 over par. I beg your pardon. Just one behind the co-leaders, Scott Simpson and Mac O'Grady. At 1 over par, he is tied with Tom Watson, Bernhard Langer, and Larry Mize. At 2 over par, Tommy Nakajima, Ben Crenshaw, Curtis Strange, and at 3 over par, Jim Thorpe.
There's a look at the 18th at the Olympic Club in San Francisco, and the first day of summer here. And the shot at the 8th, that's Keith Clearwater. The 7th, excuse me.
7th, right, and that is a big mistake. Unless he had a horrible lie, but you can throw the ball past the pin, which I would think Watson may do. You never know, but the ball will come all the way back to the hole, and it's 3-tiered green, and if you don't get it up the hill, it's just a mistake, especially on this hole. It's one of the last birdieable holes out there.
Tom Watson has lost 3 shots so far on today's round. He is at 1 over par. This is second shot at the par 4.
So, you know, he's hit a great shot.
Freddie, just a word on the conditions when you played the course as we watch Scott Simpson. His tee shot at the 8th hole, 132 yards, par 3. What a good shot he's played there. Oh, a word about the conditions, Freddie.
Well, the course is set up probably with the weather the way it is today. Is the nicest day we've had in the 4. And I think the greens have gotten to U.S. Open hardness, and it's tough to spin the ball. And the big thing is hitting the fairways and greens, and that's what mainly guys like Mac O'Grady, which you haven't seen, but the way he's been playing, he must be hitting the ball well. And of course, Seve's birdied the last 2 holes, but the wind is playing a little tough on the players, and it's holes like this where you've got to hit good shots and good birdie putts because the finishing holes are very tough.
What did you hit at the 8th hole?
I hit a 9-iron, and the pin's right on the front edge.
That was probably an 8 for Lenny.
I'm sure it was, right. Again, it's all uphill, and you just got to believe the ball will carry it. Any other circumstances, it'd be a wedge shot, but you're shooting uphill, and it plays a little longer.
Now, Larry Mize, over on the 9th hole, with his birdie attempt to try and tie the lead held by Scott Simpson and Mac O'Grady. Rather to say, really, I imagine that he'd be very glad to get away with the par here. What a fantastic thing it would be if he could win this after his Masters triumph and keep alive the hopes of a Grand Slam. A lot of doubters will be on their way to Edinburgh in Scotland, who said that he had no right to be Masters champion. There were a lot of people who detracted from that victory.
Well, I think Larry Mize is one of the best players out here. If you look at his weekly finishes, someone like Payne Stewart, you know, they haven't won 8 to 10 times like a lot of guys have. But Larry Mize is a great player and a true Masters champion. If you look at his shot on the 10th hole in the playoff, he hit it right in there 8 feet straight uphill. If he makes that, it's over, and he happened to miss. But then, of course, the shot on 11 was just one of those things.
Tom Watson now. This is for birdie and a share of the lead at the short par 4 7th hole.
Ben Crenshaw was on the right of the screen there, and he's playing at the 9th. And Watson, that was a great opportunity going a-begging. Crenshaw is 2 over par at the 9th. We saw him on the right of the screen. Keith Clearwater, playing with Tom Watson, has momentarily fallen off the leaderboard. But Ben Crenshaw, over on the 9th hole, has his birdie opportunity at this very difficult par 4 9th hole, 433 yards. Played 9th most difficult of the 18 so far. No mistake, and Crenshaw goes to 1 over par. We were watching him on the practice tee earlier, and he split his right index finger for the 3rd time this week and had to go for Band-Aids, so that must be hurting him a bit.
It has to be, but I think on a day like this, you just tape it up and you forget about it. But that's a wonderful putting stroke. I think everybody in the game of golf would love to have that stroke, Fred, for a few days.
He's my favorite to watch. It's so free and easy. It's like someone swinging a 7-iron, except he's got the putter. With that birdie there, that puts him 1 shot behind Scott Simpson.
And you may see now that O'Grady has been downgraded to 1 over par. That was a mistake that ABC committed, and he is still 1 over because he parred the 13th hole.
I guess everybody makes mistakes once in a while, huh? Now this is Larry Mize. And Mize at the 9th. This is for par. Mr. remained at 1 over and 1 shot off the lead.
Playing with Crenshaw for the 4th straight day. And very well done. That was a very solid stroke. He hit the back of the hole, and you've got to do that, Fred.
I think so. A putt uphill like that, you can't get tentative. You just have to stroke it through and maybe hit it just a little harder if it was flat, of course, when you're downhill.
Now, Scott Simpson across the slope for his birdie at the par 3 8th hole.
Very mechanical type of player. But I tell you what, a routine and a practice routine that never varies. And he has been awfully close on some birdie chances today. You call him methodical, you might even call him boring, Fred, but what works for him, and it has through the years, is obviously paying off in this U.S. Open Championship, is Bernard Langer at the 10th hole, the 422-yard par 4. And I imagine with the wind blowing and the sun out, the green's getting a little bit crusty now.
They're definitely getting a lot firmer. That shot, again, the last couple days would have skipped over the back edge, but not into the long rough over the green. And he's probably into the wind, just trying to hit it a little through it, and it just went too far on him.
Scott Simpson makes his par at the par 3 8th hole and remains at level par, the only player at that figure as the golf ball in the air.
Number 9,
that is Ballesteros playing his 2nd shot at the 9th hole at 1 over par, just 1 behind Simpson, so he has now a very ready chance to tie.
He's birdied 7 and 8 and he's got that look on his eye there.
And now Ben Crenshaw at the 10th hole. This is a dogleg to the right, par 4 of 422 yards. And of course, Freddie, we saw Bernhard Langer go through the green. That green slopes away from you in the back half, really.
It does. The shot into the green will skip to the back, and you know, I can't tell what kind of lie he has so far, but as good as he chips, he should be able to get the ball up and down.
Has the course taken the driver out of the player's hand, Fred, as we take a look now at Ben Crenshaw?
This is a great view. He's played awfully well the last couple of years, and he's back on his game. But the course, I think you have to driver. And again, and we're looking ahead to Mac O'Grady, but he's got a couple holes coming up. The 14th hole is a little dogleg left where he can hit an iron. But in the middle of the course, where it's been at number 10, it's definitely a driver shot.
That's a swing I think a lot of people would like to have for a few days too. He's right from his wood down through his putter. There's that move with the shoulder, and he has been a very consistent player, and of course a Masters champion. And here's a man that won the Open in '82 at Pebble Beach, Tom Watson, and has won his share of British Opens. This at the short par 3 8th hole, 132 yards.
That's a good shot.
I was rather surprised by Tom's rather indifferent start today. He had a 1-shot lead, hit a perfect drive at the first hole, but as he did yesterday, went for the green in 2 and pulled it to the left.
Well, again, when I got in finished, they were just starting, and he had missed like a 3.5 footer for par, which someone of his stature, it's kind of shocking, and that throws him a little off, and he's made a couple bogeys since.
Keith Clearwater. That'll be a 9-iron, I'm sure, for Keith. Difficult putt from there.
Very tough. Tom's got a putt. It should be fairly straight, but if he gets it a little too much, it could go 4 or 5 feet by. But again, you know, he knows what he's doing, and it's a very makeable birdie putt.
What a tough day it's been for Keith Clearwater. He played so well yesterday, tied the course record as we look now at Mac O'Grady, and this is at 15, 149-yard par 3. He plays right-handed, he putts left-handed, and also carries a left-handed wedge with him in his bag, and has been known to say on more than one occasion that he would like to enter the United States Amateur as a left-hander. And he can play left-handed, believe me.
He sure can. He's some kind of player, right and left.
17 times through the qualifying school before he finally made it. And he told me the other day, he said, the little boy in me continues to make me strive in this game to have fun and not take it too seriously and get down on myself. And he's got a pretty good perspective of where he's at right now, one shot behind. And this is Tommy Nakajima, who, Ben, has really regrouped today after a disastrous finish, 4 over on the last 3 holes.
Yes, he's very impressive. You know, he's level par for the day going into this 15th hole, and we can't count him out. This is a very real pair. This pair, either of this pair can win the championship.
Right. He needs to make this putt for par and stay right there.
And few people do it better than he. That is a great putting stroke.
And again, if we saw Mac O'Grady's first putt, it was about 30, 35 feet left of the hole, and the pin's tucked right over bunker. So I firmly believe right now that he knows where he stands, and he just hit that ball in the middle of the green and is just trying to make par, and he's got a little 2.5 footer here, but he's played a very smart shot into that green.
Mac is a very smart person. He's regarded as eccentric, but he's going to bring out a golf book that is going to be fairly blinding people with signs. Oh, yeah, yeah. That.
See now, here again, he's just got to regroup, which some people said that's part of his problem, but he looks pretty calm.
And the thing is, that was a tough bogey there, because going to 16, the only par 5, even though it's long at 609 yards, nobody hits it any longer than Mac O'Grady. And so a reasonable birdie chance for him at 16. As we look now at the 18th, once again a sellout here at the Olympic Club. And you can't believe what a difference a few hours makes. This morning, fog and mist and cold and some rain, as we see Larry Mize now. This at the 10th. His second shot at the par 4, measuring 422 yards, a dog leg to the right. The pin cut way up front. And oh, that's a great shot by Larry Mize.
On videotape just a few moments ago. And they walk down to the green. We look at Ben Crenshaw at the 10th hole. His second shot, 422 yards, par 4, downhill. This is also on videotape. And that's a magnificent stroke also. They're not going to play them back unless they're great.
Fred, interesting play there, because both of those players ran it up, left it short, bounced it up on the green.
Again, that's with the pin up front there. That's a great play, because as we saw Bernhard Langer earlier skip it through the green, these guys can play that little chip and run if the ball does stop short of the green, and they've hit 2 great shots in there.
Do you feel that's an art that maybe the golfers from the United States have lost through the years with the golf course design here, with so many holes that are guarded by water in front, that you don't have that chipping of the ball and hitting those punch and run shots?
I believe so. I think that any U.S. Open for me is great to play. The first year I played in the British Open was at St. Andrews, and I fell in love with it. I think that if I ever lost my card, I'd love to go over there and play. It was a treat just to play some of the shots, and I think over here we're going just the opposite, where you've got to hit the ball straight up and stop it on the greens. But those 2 shots, Larry Mize and Ben Crenshaw, were well-designed shots, and they were played that way.
And now Tom Watson has this putt on the 8th green to tie the lead, held by Scott Simpson, who is through the 8th hole and playing the 9th. Downhill and gathers pace.
Right, this is a very fast putt. It's tricky. Once it gets past the hole, if he doesn't make it, it has a tendency to go past. But he's
made it. He's made it, and so Tom Watson, after a wretched start, as one expected he would, because he's a tremendous competitor, has come right back into the thick of things
tied for the lead at level par.
And he's a favorite with the fans here, going to Stanford University, not far down the road in Palo Alto, California, and of course having won the '82 Open at Pebble Beach. And now the man he just tied, Scott Simpson, this at the 9th, 433-yard par 4. Boy, it's a study in concentration with him. He has a routine which never varies, and look at this shot.
You're going to have a job from there.
That was just a little unlucky, I believe. Even though he was in the first cut of the rough, the ball, you know, should have had a touch of spin on it to stay on the back.
Langer has made his par at the 11th hole to remain 1 over as Larry Mize makes his birdie at the 10th. We have 3 co-leaders now. Larry Mize, Scott Simpson and Tom Watson. Langer 1 behind at 1 over par, as is Ballesteros. And now Crenshaw has a chance
to tie
and be a 4th co-leader. Yes, no mistake about that. We have 4 co-leaders in the United States Open, and talking about sellouts, they're already sold out for the playoff tomorrow, and it's odds on now. We'll be back in just a few moments.
4 co-leaders now in the United States Open: Tom Watson, Scott Simpson, Larry Mize, and Ben Crenshaw. Bernhard Langer and Seve Ballesteros are 1 over par. This is the 3rd shot of Mac O'Grady at the 609 yards, par 5, 16th hole. I don't think he liked it. You know he's got to have missed the green to the right when he makes that gesture. So Mac O'Grady at 2 over par looks as if he's going to make a bit of a mess here if he doesn't pull himself together, because he's just bogeyed the 15th and may do the same again. But Scott Simpson is at the 9th hole. And this is for par.
All right, he's hit a chip just short.
That's a good stroke.
That's a great par.
So, still 4 tied for the lead. This thing, it's getting very reminiscent of Shinnecock now, where 9 were tied for the lead with after 11 holes. Ben Crenshaw in deep trouble there, though, at the 11th.
You can see a little bit of the ball, and again, if he can catch it, it should bounce up there. It's kind of look like the club snag and going left.
You called that right, Freddie. This is a 430 yards par 4 and plays 7th most difficult hole on the golf course first 3 days.
I've had a chance, Ben, to play here on several occasions, and I think just for the average player, it's the toughest hole, even because 17 places a par 5 for us regular players. And it's a very difficult hole. As we take a look now at Tom Watson, this at the 9th, 433-yard par 4. Tom, one of the leaders, and a very smart play there, and he's got himself a real good birdie chance. Well, he's regrouped. He's gathered himself. He's been, Fred, in this situation too many times, and that really pays dividends.
That's right. And also, he's got a great caddy, which we get to see of Bruce Edwards. And that's a big part of the game. But Tom missed a little putt for birdie on 7 and came back and made a great birdie at the par 3/8, and now he's looking at another one. So he's back on a roll, and like you say, he's been there so many times. If you were to, pick a guy you'd want to be, either him or this man right here, Seve Ballesteros,
who is on the 10th hole, and we saw him go to the back of the green, which is common practice, and he's putting uphill from there. As a matter of fact, for most of it, he'll be very happy to get down in 2, although this is ostensibly a birdie putt.
Right, the greens here are very, very fast, and he's backing off as he heard a roar somewhere. But again, when you hit an iron, I'm sure it went right over the pin. Now he's got in the back edge. He's just, you hate to say hoping to 2-putt, but he's going to give it his best and try and get there.
Fred, let me ask you about his brother Vincente, who is caddying for him. Whether it's a 3-foot putt or a 30-foot or 40-foot putt, he stands directly behind the hole with the flagstick bent back.
Right. I've not talked this. I don't know Seve that well, but they were talking in the locker room that with all the photographers and all the distractions that his group gets while he's playing, he and his brother worked on this and decided that no matter how far the putt is, he's going to tend the pin to. When Seve looks up to the hole in the short putts, that he can't look through his brother and see all the distracting things going on around him.
Some might say that maybe he's straddling the line for the putt.
Well, I don't know the rule. I know he can't stand behind it. They changed that rule a few years ago. But as far as standing behind it, as long as he's not saying anything like the putter's lined up square or anything, he can stand there.
Crenshaw, 3rd shot at the 11th.
And again, this just depends on the lie. He's got about a 40-yard shot with a little bit of green. If he can just get it up and soft, and look like it hit it awfully hard. And the ball just will not stop. With all the sun today, the greens, believe it or not, have dried up since yesterday.
Going back to Seve, I discussed this with him last week in Westchester, and it is a direct product of the Masters Championship. At the playoff hole, the 10th hole, Seve claimed that it was the photographers who put him off on the putt that put him out of the playoff, and I'm quite sure I believe him.
I've got to back him up too. I know that I don't get in that many spots when you get 20 or 30 photographers around you, and things happen and they make mistakes just like everyone else, and the camera goes off and they're moving. And I believe that you know, the way Seve plays, that he's always has him around, and it's highly unusual, but it certainly helped him on the shorter putts.
We saw that shot from Ben Crenshaw there. There's a ruling by the USGA next week concerning square grooves on clubs. Do you feel, as we watch Nakajima out of the sand here at the 16th hole, the par 5, that with a square groove club you could stop the ball on that sort of shot?
Throughout the year, there are shots where you can stop the ball in the rough. As we look at this shot here, well, that's not checked up from the fairway, so that's a big place to be out in this finishing holes. But again, getting back to the square grooves, I think that they help and they hurt. For instance, I use pings, and I won't get into this too deeply, but out of the deep rough, I can't hit the ball. Here's Seve trying to save his par. He's got it. I can't hit a 7-iron 150 yards. With the old conventional grooves, I could hit a 9-iron 150 yards. So the grass gets in the grooves and it causes not a flyer and the ball will spin. But with the short shots around the green, yes, the square grooves have saved a lot of shots. Again, in the U.S. Open, the greens are so hard that you know, you can throw the ball straight up and it just won't stop on those greens. But you are right, the square grooves have helped a lot of shots around the greens.
Now we're going to the 11th hole. No, we're not. We're going away again
for par on 11, which
Ben Crenshaw at the green on 11. That really was all he could virtually hope for, having played it down the left-hand rough.
He's got to believe that he's just lost a shot, but there will be some more bogeys coming down. He's just got to play the rest of the holes, you know, the way he's been playing, and try and make some birdies with the putter of his.
Anxiously awaiting some news of Mac O'Grady at the 16th hole, and Nakajima.
He and Nakajima both were laid up in the rough, which again, the hole 610 yards, and most of the guys have been hitting 3-woods and drivers off the tee, and a few 1-irons, and laying it up and having about a 9er wedge to the green, and the pin is tucked real close to the right edge today. But Mac and Tommy both missed the fairways with their second shots, and will have to make some miraculous pars to.
And now Mize on the left of your screen is lining up a birdie putt on the 11th hole, and Tom Watson a birdie putt on the 9th hole. So if Watson makes and Mize makes, they both go to 1 under par. Tom Watson is the leader at 1 under par. Will Mize follow? No, he will not.
Ben, I think it's interesting to note right now that in Tom's round of 65 the other day, he made about a 40-footer at the 3rd hole for birdie, which he felt was key for him in his round. If he hadn't have made it, he felt it would have gone 10 or 15 feet by. Today, after a stumbling start, he saved par at the 3rd hole with about a 6 or 7-footer, and I'm sure he will say after today's round, if indeed he can hold on and win this championship, or if it does go to a playoff, he'll say that was the key hole for him to again today.
Absolutely right. No question about that. He looked to be playing his way out of the tournament. He made a tremendous save at the 3rd hole. Larry Mize for his par to remain 1 off the pace at the 11th hole. I like the way he's holding out. So awfully resolute stroke. His second putts.
Well, you know, Larry Mize has played some awfully good golf during the past couple of years. Of course, John Mahaffey came from behind to beat him at the Tournament Players Championship. He lost in a playoff at the Kemper. He won at Memphis several years ago, but he has played very consistent golf, and finally won the playoff, of course, at the Masters. And Ben Crenshaw for his bogey. So Ben now 1 over for the championship, 2 behind our leader, Tom Watson.
So we have Tom Watson 1 under par as we look at Scott Simpson, who's at level par going to the 10th. Second shot, 422 yards, par 4. Downhill, downwind. That's a very good play. And he is tied with Mize now at level par, 1 behind Watson. Langer, Crenshaw, and Ballesteros, you're looking at Langer now, at the 12th, are at 1 over par. And that's how Langer's going to remain.
Bernhard Langer now will tap in, and Bernard has had himself so far very consistent first 2 rounds of 69-69, but yesterday a 3 over 73. The leaderboard now, we went from a 4-way tie, and Tom Watson now at 1 under par.
We told you that both the other Opens at this course finished in playoffs. ABC's Jim McKay takes a look now at the 2 earlier United States Opens held here at Olympic.
This chip shot in the playoff was costly to Ben Hogan, but the lightning had struck him the day before. Hogan had been in the clubhouse being congratulated on an unprecedented 5th Open victory, although he begged everyone to please wait until all the golfers were in. The lightning came in the person of Jack Fleck, a driving range pro from Davenport, Iowa, who birdied 2 of the last 3 holes to tie Hogan. The playoff, many thought, would be no contest. Hogan against who? Well, who won, and Fleck was the champion. Hogan never won another major championship. San Francisco, a city of graceful bridges, nostalgic cable cars, and delicious food, but also the city of Sam Spade, the private eye, and morning fog that chills the air, and the lightning that strikes at Olympic. The agony of Arnold Palmer stunned everyone who saw it. Palmer led Bill Casper by 7 strokes with only 9 holes to play. But then came the bunker at 15 and the snap hook at 16 and the bogey at 17. And Palmer, who had admittedly been aiming to break Ben Hogan's Open scoring record, had lost the lead and was forced to a playoff. He took the lead in the playoff, but Casper came back at him again. Arnold, who had come from 7 behind to win his only Open, this time was the victor. Like Hogan before him, he would never win another major.
Sandy Lyle had a round today of 73, and by the way, we've seen 2 historic playoffs, and I think we're pretty well certain to have another one. But Sandy Lyle today started with a bogey at the first hole, redressed that with a birdie at the 9th hole to be out in 35, birdied the 11th hole, but then bogeyed the 13th, which is the par 3, and the par 3s have been very unkind to him. And then he bogeyed 3 more holes, so he bogeyed 4 of the last 6 holes, which was rather a sad finish for him, a 73 for 289 and 9 over par.
Ben, we have seen that both Mac O'Grady and Tommy Nakajima took bogeys at 16, and now we look at Seve Ballesteros on tape just a few moments ago at the very difficult 11th hole. This has played the 2nd most difficult on the backside after 17, and from the way he is watching that, you know that it is indeed a wonderful shot, and Seve's got a chance to pull to even par. Fred, there is something about a pose after a shot that indicates how it's going to turn out, isn't it?
That's right. You could tell Seve that ball was on line, whether it was going to come up short or long, and it happened to roll about 4 feet past the pin.
Bernard Langer at 13, 183-yard par 3, and playing downwind right now.
And that ball's come up short and in the right rough.
That's a terribly difficult pin placement right at the very front.
It is. From the tee, the par 3s here at Olympic Club are fabulous. They're not overly long, although the 3rd hole's pretty long, but the ones on the back 9, 13, and 15 are well bunkered, and here you're looking at a steep face bunker from the tee, which the people can't see, but the pin is tucked right on the front edge, and it's just tricky to get a good shot. I doubt if we'll see many 2s there today.
We are thankful to ABC for their coverage of this, the United States Open Championship, the 87th Open Championship. We are taking ABC's pictures, and we are looking now at Tom Watson, who is in the middle of the 10th fairway. This is the dog leg to the right of 422 yards. And I'm sure he will drop this ball short of the putting surface. He can play the pitch and run as well as anybody.
Right. Tom's driving the ball awfully well today.
There it is.
And you've called that perfect, and he's got it going right where he wants it. He's hitting the fairways and making some putts coming down here in the middle of the round.
So Tom Watson, the leader, at 1 under par.
Larry Mize alone now at level par. Seve Ballesteros looks like he's going to make a birdie at the 11th hole to get back to level par. Ben Crenshaw and Scott Simpson now also 1 over par.
Coming into this final round, Tom Watson and Larry Mize and John Mahaffey had the most birdies through 3 rounds, and Tom has added a few more so far today as we take a look right now at the Masters champion Larry Mize, who came into this with not much fanfare or ballyhoo, being the Masters champion and the only man with an opportunity to win the Grand Slam. But Larry's an unassuming sort of fellow. It didn't really bother him that much because he said, in all due respect, even though I won the Masters, there's so many great names in this championship and so much speculation on Greg Norman and would Nicklaus regain his game and could Ray Floyd repeat, that it didn't really bother him. He just went about his business and opened up with a 1 over 71, came back with a 2 under 68 the second day, a 2 over 72 yesterday, and is now right now very much in this championship, just 1 shot behind Tom Watson. But Fred looks as though he has some problem in the rough at the 12th hole.
Well, he's hit the ball to the left. The pin is probably in the middle of the green to the right. So if any kind of lie he can play, he'd have to hit a great shot to bounce it in there. It's not a very easy shot at all, but he's probably got maybe an 8 or 9 iron. And judging the distance here is very tough to do. And again, it looks like it's right in the trees, which...
They're definitely caught up in the trees. There's no question about that.
And it doesn't look real good. People just, if you get in rough like this, you just can't understand how the club just turns right over and the ball just flies to the left. And if you get overcautious of it, you hold on to it too tight and the ball stays to the right. So there's a great arc out of hitting out of the rough.
Now Seve Ballesteros over on the 11th hole. Fred Couples is with us here. Just give us a read on that putt.
Well, here we go with his brother attending the pin. This is highly unusual, but it's something I would think it's just a little right center putt. And again, we get to look at him holding the pin. This is highly unusual. It's just amazing that for Seve, it just blocks out everything throughout the hole.
Oh, Seve Ballesteros moves to level par alongside Larry Mize, who doesn't look as if he's going to stay at that figure, and Scott Simpson. And we have once again three players at level par now, because Larry Mize, I'm sure, is going to make a bogey. The only on the 12th hole.
Comment, Ben, I want to make about that is when I was a caddy as a youngster, I was taught if I was going to hold the pin in the hole to stand to the side. And I think what maybe distracts some of the people, it's different to have the caddy right behind, but it obviously isn't against the rules because the USGA hasn't said anything. And we move back to the troubles of Larry Mize right now, who I guess should be very familiar with these towering pines here, being from Columbus, Georgia, and pine trees very prevalent down at that neck of the woods, if you will. Over 40,000 trees line this golf course, the Olympic Club. This is 3rd shot at the par 4.
He was very fortunate to hit those trees and come out in a position where he could play a shot like that.
And he's hit a beautiful shot. He's still got a 8, 10, 12 footer for par. So it's things like this, if he were to happen to make this, could give him a great boost, bigger than maybe making a birdie.
So to put you back in the picture, Tom Watson, the leader, at 1 under par. Larry Mize, a chance to stay at level par at the 12th hole. Seve Ballesteros level through 11. Scott Simpson level through 10. Ben Crenshaw 1 over through 11. And O'Grady and Nakajima, both having bogeyed the 16th hole, have moved to 3 over par. So Langer, Bernhard Langer, at 2 over par, has passed them. And also at 3 over par, Curtis Strange through 14 holes, and Keith Clearwater playing with Tom Watson here at the 10th.
Keith has seemingly regrouped after losing 4 shots early, has gotten it back together. I imagine his nerves were a bit high-strung today.
Keith's a great player, and winning earlier this year at Colonial just proved that he's 27 and proved he could play out here. And I've known him, we were in college the same years, and Tom Watson's got a putt here to birdie 3 in a row.
Indeed, he has. You're quite correct, Fred.
This to go back to even par on today's round and a 2-shot lead.
Oh, that's cruel.
And it looked like he just hit that just a a touch hard, and it just went right through the break. But, you know, again, making pars is what a U.S. Open's all about, and coming in the 11th hole, Scott Simpson. Again, right from the middle of the fairway.
430 yards, par 4. Finds the bunker to the right of the green. A correction on the scores of Mac O'Grady and Tommy Nakajima. They are still at 2 over par through the 16 holes, according to our information.
But we will double check that, won't we?
I'm sure we will.
There's Scott Simpson, who earlier this year at Greensboro, the week before the Masters, played 27 holes on a Saturday when it was 25 degrees and didn't make a bogey, as Tom Watson now for his par. And he remains 1 shot ahead of Larry Mize, Seve Ballesteros, and Scott Simpson. So a good birdie opportunity at 10, and Tom is not able to convert. I think, Fred, on this backside at the Lakeside course at Olympic, 11 and 17 are the 2 real pivotal holes. You would just like to make par on both of those.
Correct. Again, like you say, 17 is played the toughest, but 11 is in the middle of the round, and it's just a hole where you'd love to make par and get out of there. Again, when you're playing it and you're maybe even or 1 under for the day, and you've got the 11th, you know a par there kept the round going.
Now, Ben Crenshaw, this is for par at 12. So Crenshaw and Mize both with par putts. Flirts with the cup. So Ben Crenshaw goes to 2 over par for the championship and 3 behind Tom Watson.
So we have a look at the 11th hole in some detail. 2 bunkers to the left of the green, 1 to the right. As Watson drives, they're really liking that one, and so should he.
And that's
letter perfect, and Tom Watson beginning to get more and more confidence with each successive hole, despite missing that birdie putt at the 10th. A 1-stroke lead over Mize, Ballesteros, and Scott Simpson, and we see Mize trying to save his par at the 12th hole, having had a very lucky break in the trees that the ball was thrown out into the rough. Oh, put such a good stroke on that one.
yes, both those bogeys by Ben and Larry are obviously not what they wanted. And the 12th is really not, I'm not going to say it's not that hard a hole. Obviously, if you miss the fairway, any hole's tough in U.S. Open, but it's nothing but a 3-wood and an 8 or 9 iron. And now they just go the 13th to par 3, hope to regroup.
Now we see Scott Simpson, and he's got a problem in the bunker at the 11th. This just a few moments ago, his 3rd shot at the par 4. Hit the flag. What a great break for Scott Simpson. It hit the flag, and look at him. Well, sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good, and that was the case right there for Scott Simpson, with a chance to save his par at the 11th, as we look at Larry Mize right now.
He's on the 13th tee. This is 186 yards, par 3. As Fred has said before, there's a very steep-faced and deep bunker directly in front of the green, and the hole is cut today very close to that bunker, making it extremely difficult to get close to the hole. What did you play here?
Our group, we both hit 6s, Tony Sills and I. And the problem here is it looks like the pin is right over that bunker, and the bunker is really there just for the beauty of it. It doesn't come in play unless you hit it fat or just not nearly enough club. But the problem is you try and get too cute, and that's what happens. And you just see Larry's hit too much club, and that ball looks like it's sitting down. But the problem here is you just want to hit your best shot and get it on the green and hope for par and get out of there. And now Ben's seen this and probably can pick the right club. I'm sure it's a 6 for him also.
I'm wondering, Crenshaw and Mize have played together for 4 consecutive days. Remember back to Baldestrel and A.D. Nicholas when he won there, played with Aoki on 4 consecutive days. Does it come down where there's twosomes, Fred? Does a lot depend on who you're playing with and how they're doing on that day, or if you can just block out those things around you?
Again, I think twosomes is a great way to play. The pace is a lot faster, as we're seeing today. Guys are not standing around. Ben and Larry, again, have, I would say, identical games. They both drive the ball the same, and they can find out what clubs they're hitting, and it helps. And again, in the U.S. Open, you know, these guys are both great players, but for Keith Clearwater to get paired in the last group with Tom Watson, that's a different feeling. It's a tough to go out there when you're leading and play with someone as great as Tom. But these two guys have played 4 straight days together. That's terrific.
We have news of another player, former European Open champion Bobby Watkins has moved to 3 over par through 16 holes, and he suddenly comes into play. Seve Ballesteros, meanwhile, at the 13th, no, the 12th hole.
Looked like he had to hit a little punch fade out of there, and we've yet to find it yet.
Well, it looks as if they're running into the woods. Yes, there it is on the bare earth. And so Seve Ballesteros has got real problems here at this 390 yards par 4.
And we see Tommy Nakajima right now, who's playing alongside on this particular day with Mac O'Grady. And it's interesting pairing there because Mac speaks some Japanese. He is married to a Japanese girl, spends quite a bit of time there. And of course, Tommy reportedly his golf club company pays him some $2.5 million a year to play. That would be a nice way to go out and play golf, wouldn't it, Fred, with $2.5 million in the bank?
You have no worries. Tommy is a hero over in Japan.
And that's where Tommy ended up yesterday, Ben, some 40 feet up in that tree.
Yes, a young lad went after the ball, but he couldn't shake it free, and Nakajima certainly wasn't going to get into the act of climbing, so had to declare the ball lost. It was a tragic moment because he finished bogey, bogey, double bogey. And yet still, he has an outside chance if he can make a birdie here to finish at 3 over.
And I believe he's bogeyed 16 and 17 again today, so it's always fun to finish with a good shot in the last hole.
But he certainly didn't tangle with the dreaded tree.
That is a good shot.
That's going to come back.
It should, a little more. That's a good shot.
But terribly difficult putt.
Right, he's got one that you just can't be real aggressive.
And now we go back to Tom Watson, who as of yesterday was 107th in fairways hit, 57th place right now of the 77 players who made the cut, but leads in greens hit in regulation.
That's surprising. Tom is very strong and can play out of the rough.
That's a nice pose. That at the 11th, and there it is. So safely on the green, and there is Seve Ballesteros, his 3rd shot at the 12th.
That's very nice from where he was, off the dirt and the pine needles here.
There's no one more inventive
than Seve.
You know, you think about him poking around in the caddy yard at Pedrena. This is Larry Mize at the 13th.
And here's a shot that I believe Larry has got to get up and down just to hang in there. He's just bogeyed number 12.
And now we take a look at the green at 13.
And some news for those at home. Greg Norman, I'm afraid he tried to take the golf course by the scruff of the neck, and I'm afraid he was taken by the scruff of the neck by the lake course at Olympic Club. He shot a 77 today, 38 out and 39 coming home. And so he finished at 12 over par. At least he birdied the final hole to finish that way, but a sad day for Greg Norman. Tom Watson, the leader, by 1 over Seve Ballesteros and Scott Simpson. And we now look at Ben Crenshaw, who is also lurking handily at 2 over par at the 13th hole, 186 yards, par 3.
Ben was telling me this morning his wife Julie followed him for the first 2 rounds, but they're expecting their first child, and so she was simply going to sit and watch on television today. As we move now to Bernard Langer. This at 14. And Langer with a birdie now and moves from +2 to +1 and 2 shots behind Tom Watson.
Ben Crenshaw, marvelous opportunity for him, and really there's no one who does this better. That was, by his standards, strangely tentative. And of course that's what pressure does to you. Now Seve Ballesteros, very important putt for him. They all are, of course, but if he could salvage par, it is like a birdie, isn't it, really, Fred?
Correct. He needs to stay within 2 shots of Tom, who's already on 11 with the birdie putt.
Well, he's got no gimme coming back there. That's a costly blunder at one of the shorter par 4s on the golf course.
This is almost like watching a tennis match. Moving your head back, and the leaderboard keeps moving up and down. Exciting day here at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. And once again, you saw just a few moments ago what happened in 1955 and 1966, and they've already issued, as Ben mentioned, tickets, parking passes. I think they're expecting a playoff on Monday. As Tom Watson now on the left of your screen, Larry Mize on the right. Watson putting for birdie, and Mize looking at a par putt here. Watson at the 11th hole.
This is a chance for a 2-stroke lead, and
right, he's going to come up a little hill, and
that passed over the right.
How that didn't go in.
Goodness me. That could have been a 2-stroke lead, because Seve has bogeyed to go back to 1 over, and only one player at even par now, Scott Simpson. Tom Watson, the leader by 1.
Fred, when he starts hitting fairways, the other players get concerned, and Larry Mize now has this for par, and that comes up short, so Mize goes to 2 over for the championship.
And we hear that Seve Ballesteros did indeed convert that putt and make a very good putt indeed for a bogey. A very good putt indeed at the 12th hole.
But again, you talked about Tom's length, and here's Mac O'Grady. I believe he's on the 18th. He should be playing with Tommy Nakajima. And
so they both botched up the 16th and 17th holes.
So a round of 2 over 72 for Mac O'Grady.
While American television is taking a commercial break, here's a tip on how to get out of the rough here at the Olympic Club. Tom Watson, the leader, at 1 under par through 11 holes. Scott Simpson level through 11 holes. Seve Ballesteros and Bernhard Langer, the European duo, at 1 over par. Ballesteros through 12 holes, Langer through 14. So Langer, being ahead, is in a better position. He's played those holes. Larry Mize and Ben Crenshaw have dropped to 2 over par through 13 holes apiece. And Bobby Watkins, Curtis Strange, Keith Clearwater, and Lenny Clements reappearing on the leaderboard, 3 over par. We've just heard that Jack Nicklaus has finished with a 77, so he has finished like Greg Norman, well down in the pack at 11 over par.
I'm Roger Twibell, along with Ben Wright, and also with us at our broadcast position is Fred Couples, who earlier this year won the Byron Nelson Classic, a former tournament players champion. And this is Bernard Langer now at the 15th, putting for birdie. He is 2 shots behind Tom Watson. The 15th, a short 149-yard par 3, and actually just almost onto the rough off the green. And See what sort of club
I
Bernard.
think he's got maybe a 7 iron. He may have the putter where I can't really tell, but the putt, the little chip should swing to the right.
That, of course, is Jack Nicklaus on your picture, which is being supplied by ABC. He is attached to that company. Now we're looking at Scott Simpson at the 12th hole, who came up short from very deep rough to the right of the fairway. Alone at level par. Awfully good stroke there.
That's a beautiful touch.
So he has every chance of staying within one stroke of Tom Watson, but this is Seve Ballesteros very badly needing a birdie at the par 3 13th hole of 186 yards at 1 over par. That won't get there, will it?
No, that's
by a long way.
No, that's 6, 7 feet short.
Whew, dear me.
Fred, we've seen the first 3 days here as we look at Ben Crenshaw now, and Crenshaw has his second shot at 14, the 417-yard par 4, but very timid with the birdie putts for fear that if you send it by too far, and a lovely shot by Crenshaw. Well, he's got a great birdie opportunity right there, but if you send it by too far, you're looking at a 3 or 4 footer coming back.
That's right, and again, as great as Seve is with the putter, that's very surprising, because a putt like that is a little downhill and fast, but it's not as treacherous as a lot of them are, and for him to, you know, knowing that's not really a birdie putt, but he should have given that a little better chance.
You know, there have been as many 4 putts in this championship as any I ever remember anywhere in the world, Fred, and I think that indicates how difficult the greens are. But this is Seve desperately needing this par putt to stay on terms. He's 2 behind Watson now, and the holes are running out, and Watson's playing behind him, and of course knows what all these other gentlemen are scoring, and I think Watson is probably feeding off the leaderboard.
I believe so, Tom. This is a big putt for Seve. Obviously, he knows it, and the wind picked up when he backed off, but as the more bogeys are being made, the more comfortable Tom Watson feels, and he knows with a 2-shot lead or 1 or 3 that he's in the lead, and it's all up to him.
Oh,
and
goodness.
That
never had a chance. That never had a chance. So
on the left-hand side of your picture, you've got Bernhard Langer, who's got also a very difficult par putt, and he is also in danger here of making a bogey, which he cannot afford at this stage.
Right, and this is a little easier than Seve. Seve was a downhill curler, and Bernhard left it a little short, but it should break a little to the right, but it is uphill, and he can go ahead and stroke it.
No.
And he's hit it too hard, so they did both the opposite. One was a little too soft, and he just hit it right through the break.
So the European challenge has taken a double body blow there. Both Langer and Ballesteros dropping strokes, and Langer has yet to convert his bogey putt, but they are both definitely going to be at 2 over par. He's gone cross-handed, of course, which he very often does for close range work.
They say the Open Championship really begins on the 10th tee on Sunday afternoon, and remember we had all those players tied for the lead at the 10th tee, and how they've now filtered away as Larry Mize, as we see him at 14. His 3rd shot.
But again, all these little shots just get tougher and tougher, and they don't roll up 2 and 3 feet as they were Friday and Saturday. And as you just said, Roger, 15 minutes ago, they were all
Tom Watson playing his 2nd shot at 390 yards, par 4, 12th hole, from a perfect position into the gathering shadows, and he's pulled that, I believe, off the putting surface. There it is in the deep rough. The marshals are tired in
a rather strange garb this week, I think it's fair to say.
Well, they went to Payne Stewart's closet and pulled out some of his +4s. Watson was in the fairway there once again, and he had been doing nothing but hitting fairways and greens here recently. So that's the first shot that's gone astray for quite some time. But he has a one-shot lead right now over Scott Simpson, and then 3 over Longer, Ballesteros, Mize, and Crenshaw, all at +2.
And we saw just a moment ago Keith Clearwater's shot went over the green, and he's 3 over par. Now you're looking at Nick Price from South Africa, now domiciled in Florida, playing his second shot at 343 yards, 18th hole. Price playing with Bobby Watkins, who is very much in contention and has the ball very close to the hole. And if Watson makes that putt, he finishes at 2 over par, and that will make a formidable target.
That's exactly what you try and do. You try and obviously shoot as low as you can and get in that clubhouse with the best score. And Bobby's got about a 4 or 5 footer straight uphill on 18 to finish with a great score of 282.
And there you see the leaderboard indicating Watson's very narrow advantage, but it was a double body blow for the Europeans there, with Ballesteros and Langer both dropping shots. The Goodyear blimp hovers overhead, at last able to take pictures, which you see. Now it was invisible for 2 days. Ben Crenshaw for a birdie to get back to 1 over par, to go alone into 3rd place. Doesn't miss too many of those. So Ben Crenshaw goes to 1 over par. Scott Simpson at level par. Tom Watson at 1 under par.
And Crenshaw will move on to 15, which has been the 2nd easiest hole so far throughout this championship. And Larry Mize, a much different story. He's struggling right now. He's trying to maintain, and he has this putt for par. Excuse me, putting for bogey. And right now we go to Tom Watson, though, at the 12th hole. This pitch through the shadows and into the sunlight, and has got himself a putt there just about the length that he had at 17 yesterday. But a much different green, of course. And so Tom trying to save his par at the 12th and maintain his lead over Scott Simpson, the leader, looking for his 2nd Open Championship.
Mize has made his bogey, we heard, at the 14th hole. And it's most noticeable to me that Mize starts to get a little ragged in the closing stages of his round. He's done it on all the previous days.
Oh, he's now bogeyed 12, 13, and 14, which is maybe throwing him out of the championship. But he's got plenty of holes to go, and if he can, you know, hit a good shot here and birdie a couple coming in, he can throw himself right back in there. But right now it's Tom Watson who is in the lead and looking very nice.
But I'll tell you what, this is a crucial shot for Ben Crenshaw, because if he can get this one close at the 149 yards, 15th, he's right back in the thick of things again.
That's correct. Again, excuse me, he's 1 over, and the shot with the pin, as you can see, is to our left and his right, and the wind is blowing across. So the shot here is to try and cut it into the wind, but if you push the ball in the right bunker, it's virtually a bogey. There's no green to get it up and down. So as we said earlier, when Mac played to the middle of the green, it was a smart shot, but he left himself with a long putt and 3-putted for bogey. And it's a 7-iron probably for Ben, and it's not a very tough shot unless you try and get too cute, and that's really what you try and do. But I would think Ben is just going to try and hold it up into the wind and just hit the best shot he can.
You can see the flag just in the shadows of those tall, whether it's a eucalyptus or cypress or pine or fir tree that's hanging over the green. But Ben has played this hole in par, birdie, par the previous 3 days, and as I mentioned a moment ago, this par 3 has been the 2nd easiest behind the first hole, a 523-yard par 5 throughout this championship.
Right. This is a very short hole, and it's just been an 8-iron so far. And here's Tom Watson with the par putt on 12.
That was a very good save he made there. Ben Crenshaw's tee shot on its way at the 15th, and he's pulled it to the very far edge of the green, but he's putting at least.
Right, that's pretty much what he wanted to do. I'm sure he wanted a little farther into the middle of the green to give himself some kind of a birdie putt, but now he's got one in the shadow of probably 40 feet.
You might have seen the patches on that green. These greens are Poa Annua, as they say in England, or Poana, as they say here, and bent, a mixture of the two. And that they look patchy, but they putt very smoothly.
Right, the thing they've done with the greens this week is, since it's been so cold, that they've cut them down as low as they possibly can without being afraid of losing them, because it's been 50s in the mornings and up to 60s in the afternoon, so there's no problem of having them burnt out.
Larry Mize now, the wind blowing from the golfers right to left, and you can see that hit the mound between the bunker and the green and kick 90 degrees to the left. And I think one of the things also, Fred, that has to be taken into consideration in this golf course is the air above the trees.
That's correct.
If you hit a high ball,
that's what most of the players are. The trees are sturdy and strong, and people look up to see which way the wind's blowing, and they're not moving, so it's tough to play the wind. But Larry was a little unfortunate on that shot. If it carries a little farther, it might be very close.
Lenny Clements, meanwhile, on the 13th hole, has a putt for a par here to remain at 3 over. You see the wind tugging at his sleeves there. Gives you an indication how strong that wind is if you're exposed at all, and swirling amongst the trees. No, he goes to 4 over par, and I think that's about his last hurrah. He's coming over to try and qualify for the Open at Muirfield. He was a qualifier here in Cleveland, and he was very pleased to see the wind blowing. He expects the same in Scotland when he gets there. I think he's about right. This is Scott Simpson, and we hear this putt is for a par also, to keep him at level par.
As Roger said earlier, he's very mechanical, and he never does anything different through the week, year, or career. He's just practice strokes and strokes them in just like that.
I think Fred, you could say that his practice swing is absolutely similar to that which he uses to hit the ball.
That's correct, and his practice swings are slow and smooth, effortlessly, and when he hits the ball, he doesn't hit it any harder than his practice swings.
Tom Watson teeing it up on the 13th hole, 186 yards.
that's a very narrow hallway there, isn't it?
That's correct, and again, you cannot play for a fade or draw because it is so tight off the tee, and he's made a good-looking swing.
Oh, goodness. It just caught into that deep rough in front, another foot, and it would have been in the shorter stuff, but now it's totally disappeared. So Watson is going to have to pull some magic out for the second hole in a row as we go to Seve Ballesteros now, and Ballesteros is at the 14th. He's putting for birdie at this 417-yard par 4. What about this putt here, Fred?
Well, he's got it below the pin, and he's putting uphill, and it should break from his left to right. It should be a hook putt for him, and I don't believe it just turned off a little. We couldn't see with Vincente there, but he's claimed that the first 2 days he left the ball below the hole all the time, and that's what you need to do on these greens.
Ben Crenshaw now back on the 15th. If anyone's going to make a long putt, this man you would bet your life on.
Who is the best long putter, Fred, right now on the tour in your estimation?
Well, I would think on greens like this, Ben Crenshaw, since we're looking at him, and Tom Watson is a great lag putter. And again, that's you know, there aren't many people that hit putts like that think they're going to go in and can make them go in.
Well, we'll be back with the exciting closing stages of the United States Open in just a few moments. While you were away, Tom Watson played a most marvelous chip at the 13th hole. He's at 1 under par, leading by 1 shot from Scott Simpson at level par, and we're looking at Scott Simpson now as he plays his second shot at the 14th hole. This is a par 4 of 417 yards. And once again, he's in the middle of the fairway. Oh, lovely stroke. Well, Watson looks fairly certain to make a par at the 13th, but Simpson has a great chance to tie him at the 14th hole. Bernhard Langer has played 4 shots at the par 5 16th. He was through the green in 3. Conventional putting grip for a short putt. He made that very well indeed.
There's no rhyme or reason. It's just how he feels when he gets over the ball. We've seen him this week on more than one occasion use the conventional grip from the short distances. You take a look now at Tom Watson with a 1-shot lead over Simpson, but Simpson apparently in pretty good shape for a birdie, and Watson has this now for a par to maintain that 1-shot lead at 13. And Fred, this is the putt, maybe this distance a little bit longer, that had been giving him trouble for such a long time. But seems very solid over the ball today.
He's been putting well the whole week, and obviously that's one of the reasons he's in the lead. But as you said, the short putts have been bothering him. He's had some eye problems.
Isn't it funny how when you can make a couple of long putts, it sets up your short putts? And Tom, for years, had been the master at that. Not even having to be on the green, but on the fringe and running them in. And on that round of 65 on Friday, he made some of those long putts, and it seemed to set everything else up for him.
That's correct. As you talked about earlier, the 3rd hole, he claimed he made a putt that probably would have went far enough by where he couldn't have made it coming back, and that's a 2-stroke swing, and then he comes back with 65.
Lovely look from the Goodyear blimp at the Pacific Coast and this glorious golf course in Daly City. And the situation is Watson 1 under par, Simpson looking a fair bet to go 1 under par at the 14th. Ben Crenshaw alone at 1 over par through 15. Langer and Ballesteros at 2 over par. Strange, Thorpe, Mize and Clearwater hanging in. Clearwater very well indeed after a disastrous start. They're all 3 over par at this moment.
Ben, the people across the Atlantic cannot believe that you're not supposed to have this kind of weather this time of year in San Francisco. So this is a real delight here. As you're taking a look at John Mahaffey. Mahaffey playing along with Seve Ballesteros, and that is at 15. John having a bit of a struggle today. As a matter of fact, he is at 4 over par right now. As we look at Tom Watson on the tee at 14, 417-yard par 4. It looks like the big club, Fred.
That's correct. I'm surprised he hit that. It looks like he's hooked it a little. But again, it's way down there, and it looked at the last second it dropped down. But again, he hasn't hit a whole lot of fairways. He's hit a few today, but as you pointed out earlier, he's very short on the list. But he's got a 9-iron or wedge out of there. So for Tom, he figures, you know, as long as he can get some kind of lie, he can get up on the green.
Seve Ballesteros, meanwhile, is on the par 3 15th hole with a very real birdie opportunity. And these lengthening shadows posing their own problems, these great trees. Seve is going to stalk this one from every angle as he does when he senses the kill.
Well, this is definitely a big putt. He's got it. It should be pretty straight, but into the shadows, it's always tough to judge. But he had 2 over and Watson 1 under. He definitely needs this.
He's made it, and that's a brilliant putt by Ballesteros, moves him to 1 over par. Last week, he gambled and lost at the playoff at Westchester, and here's a man who you won't find gambling very often. A birdie putt at the 14th hole for Scott Simpson, and he ties the lead at 1 under par. A man who hardly got a call yesterday. We only saw him at the 18th hole make a brilliant birdie putt. I think we'll be seeing a little more of him today. Now, those two, the leaders, Tom Watson and Scott Simpson, are leaving themselves a little distance between themselves and Ballesteros and Crenshaw, and Langer is running out of real estate.
Ben, yesterday, Seve had 6 birdies and 4 bogeys in his round of 68, and it appears today that he is
7 birdies and 5 birdies.
Excuse me, even more so.
Yes.
But he's been having, once again, the type of round where making a lot of those. It's not very consistent golf.
No. He's not really known for that either. He's not known for consistency. I mean, you could hardly call him consistent last week when he gets to the playoff and tries to drive the green at the 304 yards 10th hole at Westchester. It was really almost a crazy gamble, wouldn't you say?
I would think so. And again, getting back to yesterday, I was in the group in front of him, and all day long I kept looking at these drives where I couldn't believe where they were. And when we got in, he had hit driver on almost every hole, which is differently than the way he attacked the course the first 2 days, figuring that on Saturday, being at 68-75 at 3 over, he needed to shoot a great score. And he just went out and bombed all his drives and hit the ball well. And with short clubs coming in, he made some birdies, and when he missed the fairways, I'm sure that's when he made his bogeys.
And when Fred Couples is surprised about how far somebody hits a golf ball, you know it's a long drive. This is Scott Simpson now.
Again, this is, I think it's a big shot. Obviously it is, but it's a very tough pin. It kind of wants you to shoot for it and knock it in that trap. But as we've figured out Scott's game, he's going to be shooting right for the middle of the green.
That would probably be an 8-iron, wouldn't you say?
I would think so, and that's a great shot.
Exactly what you said, right in the middle of the green. Why would you do anything else, really, at this stage of the game, tied for the lead?
Not too far from where Seve Ballesteros' ball ended up.
Now, Curtis Strange, that's holding out at the 18th hole at 3 over par, presumably. We don't have the information, but I'm sure that was a par for Curtis, and that is a very formidable total.
And that's a look from the clubhouse at the Olympic Club. Down the 18th, the crowd gathered around, and on the tee, Lenny Clements at 15. Lenny's gotten a shot back. Last time we saw him, he was 4 over for the championship. Pitches right over Scott Simpson's ball. And now Ben Crenshaw. This at 16. 609-yard par 5, and obviously in some trouble there, Fred.
I would think, yeah, he just had to chip out. He didn't quite get it to the corner, and it is a dogleg left at the end. Here's Watson coming out of the rough. That's the 14.
Yeah.
But again, a short club and the ball, and this is a great shot.
The rough is a very familiar place for Tom. It's not like it's unusual because he doesn't hit that many fairways, but you can see there what happens coming out of that deep rough at Olympic. About how deep is it, Fred?
Well, I guess it's 4 inches is what the USGA, but by the end of the week, it does get trampled down, and you can get some good lies. It looked, the way the ball came out there, it was a pretty good lie.
Langer's second shot now, uphill at the 428 yards par 4 17th hole.
That's a beautiful shot. That's been the toughest hole all week, and he's got it below the pin putting for birdie, which there haven't been many of those.
4.54 the stroke average at 17 as we look at Scott Simpson, who shares the lead right now with Tom Watson, that man there, as Watson makes his way up to the green at 14. So Watson and Simpson tied for the lead, and then Ben Crenshaw and Seve Ballesteros at 1 over par, 2 shots back, and Langer at +2 all by himself, and Jim Thorpe at +3 along with Larry Mize. And Keith Clearwater, who came into this day the fewest bogeys in the previous 3 days, just 4 with a couple of double bogeys, started off 4 over par on the first 3 holes and has made nothing but par since then. So he has gathered himself and is 4 shots back. And of course, it's a happy Father's Day here as you see the sign, and for all those fathers. And Tom Watson, who has not won a golf tournament since the '84 Western Open. It's been a long and difficult dry spell for him because he's been a tremendous champion through the years. this Father's Day might be the day that Tom comes through.
Talking about the difficulty of the 17th hole, it has played to an average of 4.54 in the previous 3 days, and that gives you an idea of how good a shot Langer has played. There have only been 15 birdies there in 3 days, and 245 pars, 81 bogeys, 8 double bogeys. So you really, you know, you get an idea of what a great shot Langer has played exactly at the right time.
The crowd on the hillside. This is a natural amphitheater around the 18th here at the Olympic Club, and when this property was first developed as a golf course, there was nary a tree on it, and some 40 to 50,000 trees were planted, and the course here during the last year has really taken shape nicely. They've done a lot of work on it, but always in great shape. It's a 36-hole facility. There is an ocean-side course, which unfortunately, because of some erosion, they don't have any holes by the ocean anymore. But it's a wonderful golf facility. A par 70 plays to just over 6,700 yards, Fred. And I haven't heard any complaints all week from any of the pros about this place.
It's a fabulous course. It was set up magnificently by the USGA. The fairways maybe some are sloped a little too much. For instance, as we'll talk about the 17th hole, as the ball, good drives are rolling into the right rough.
Now we're back looking at the two co-leaders. Watson on the 14th hole. Simpson smiling as well he might. He's putting to take the lead here on the 15th hole. And I would say that since this is on tape and we saw him smiling, we might see this one go into the hole.
And sure enough, that's unbelievable.
So suddenly Scott Simpson takes the lead again, and you know that this man knows it.
Right, these greens are close together, and this can't stop, and it goes in.
My goodness.
We have a tie again. Well, well.
I want to tell you, the folks that are running the leaderboard are the busiest people on the golf course right now, putting up names, taking down numbers. And Tom Watson and Scott Simpson are both at 2 under par.
And I think you can almost say, Fred, that this championship lies between the two now, because the others are 3 behind at best, and those Crenshaw, who's in trouble on the 16th hole, and Ballesteros. And there's not what you'd call too many birdie opportunities left now. Bernhard Langer, however, has got a birdie opportunity at the 17th hole. This would be an awfully good birdie if he makes it.
As you see how tough that green is, it's just missed to the right. Now it's rolled to the 3 inches or 3 feet to the right of the hole. But Watson's putt on 14 was just straight downhill, and as you could see just how fast it was, he barely tapped it.
Now, Crenshaw has already played 3 shots. That's his 4th at the 609 yards, par 5 16th. And I'm afraid to say bogey. Oh, that was on tape, obviously. That's his 5th shot. Well, he's going to make bogey, and he will go to 2 over par. And he's now 4 shots behind with only 2 holes to play, and I think it's almost fair to count him out of the championship, sad though it may be to do so.
I think it might be safe to say that this championship will probably be decided at the 17th hole, as we take a look at Larry Mize right now at 16 for birdie.
This green has gotten very hard. I played probably close to 3 hours ago, and we could not hold our wedge shots there as Ben's ball bounces in the tall rough. And if these players could realize that coming in, especially Scott and Tom Watson, that they would realize just to hit it in the fat part of the green.
Tom Watson now. 149 yards to the flagstick. Difficult to see in this sharply etched shadows, but he's got a birdie putt of, oh, what, 35, 40 feet?
Right about there, right.
Now, Scott Simpson
at the 16th hole. This just curves all the way to the left, 609 yards.
That's a great view. He's just going to try and turn this over a little and obviously try and hit the fairway.
He started that out a long way to the right. Well, he's asking for it to get a good lie, and so you know that he's in the rough. And those trees really intrude.
Well, if he's got it to where the people have been walking, he's certainly got a break, and he can hit it underneath these limbs, and you can see the ball. I would think he can punch it up the fairway and still play the hole as he would even if he was in the fairway.
What's the play here, Fred? What do you do at 16 in your mind?
Well,
tied for the lead.
For Scott, I'm not going to say he's short, but it's a very long hole. Hitting driver is a good play for him. He hits the ball awfully straight, and again, it looks like he's gotten a little bit of break now. He may hit 2-iron or 4-wood. I'm not sure what kind of shot he has, but you can get a break over there, and then he's going to probably have an 8 or 9-iron to the green.
Seve Ballesteros up ahead of him.
Right, and now we're just going to see how hard this green really is. And
yes, well now, Fred, if you can't hold the green with a short iron, Scott Simpson may be coming in with something a lot longer.
Right. So, but Seve's coming out of the first cut, and here's where he's got the square grooves out, but he's got his work cut out for him here.
Alone in third place now.
Right.
3 behind. Watson and Simpson at 1 over par. Well, Fred, you called it absolutely correctly. There's just no chance to stop on that green.
Beautiful shot. It lit right by the pin, and then the ball's sitting up, and with his touch, you know, he could even chip that in, but he definitely needs to birdie here, and his other hopefully chance will be on 18.
You'd almost rather want to be in the bunker, wouldn't you, Fred, if you had to miss it here?
As long as you were close up to the pin, correct. As we saw Ben's shot almost go in from over the green, and just with great touch is what it needs there. You're chipping downhill, but if he'd hit that shot in the bunker, knowing where his ball is now, he'd probably rather have it in the trap.
And you see Bernard Longer right there at the 18th, a 343-yard par 4, and that'll just catch the rough and then roll back onto the fairway, and that's a good angle on that side to come into this very narrow hole.
That's a perfect place.
So the holes are running out for Seve Ballesteros here in his quest for the U.S. Open Championship. Meanwhile, Tom Watson, who is tied with Scott Simpson at the par 3 15th, and this is where Simpson made birdie from just a few moments ago. Watson about 10 to 12 feet further out, and Ballesteros 3 back, and then Bernard Longer and Ben Crenshaw at +2, and a host of players at +3, including Masters champion Larry Mize and young Keith Clearwater, who has really showed some form, even though we haven't seen him since early on. Now Watson has this for birdie into the shadows. And there is a windsurfer on Lake Merced nearby, obviously not interested in the golf, so we shouldn't be interested in him.
That's right.
Oh, he's got a long second putt there.
That's a not knocking it, but that's a tough putt when you're putting from the sun into the shade, and it's tough to judge the distance. But he's got himself one right there, and knowing that he's tied for the lead, they even get that much harder.
Now we're back again with the Scott Simpson
right, and this
predicament.
Now that he's laid it up off the tee in the rough, he knows he's got to get this ball in the fairway, so he has chosen an iron, which is a very smart play.
Meanwhile, up at the green, Seve Ballesteros has problems of his own. As you say, he's got a wonderful touch, and you can see the ball. When we were looking at the ball before, we were looking from so high, it might have looked better than it actually was, but it doesn't look that bad. It's not great either.
He made a couple of remarkable shots at Westchester last week from around the greens. Now Simpson back down the 16th, and looks like he was able to take a nice full swing.
Yeah, he's got it right up the right side of the fairway, which is, now I can't tell how far. It looks like there's a little hill you come up over, and it looks like he's got it back where he's going to have a very long full shot in.
And up at the green, Seve Ballesteros needing all his magic. He's played a beautiful shot. You can see, actually, that green is darn nearly burned out.
Right, the players call them when they get blue. You see all the footprints and heel marks and everything else, and it just gets down low where it's like concrete.
Now, Tom Watson, how many times we've been televising tournaments over here these last 3 years when this has been the putt that's destroyed him. He used to hit them in with such conviction.
Didn't even used to think about it. Just
No,
would walk up and hit them.
He'll be the first to admit it, but I have a feeling that he's just going to knock that
Golly.
Let's go to Las Vegas.
That's right. But see, he's just got a big smile, and I think that's more of a nervous smile, knowing that he made that, whereas years in the past, you know, he'd just walk out and pick it out of the hole.
That's Langer at the 18th, his short iron shot, giving it a little body turn there. That's a very good shot he's played.
Can't believe it stayed there.
It's hard to believe that ball, he must have cut it.
But I'm afraid, even with a birdie, I don't think that it'll be quite good enough. Tom Watson and Scott Simpson now 3 ahead of their nearest rivals. Seve Ballesteros and Langer, the 2 European challengers, and Crenshaw running out of time now. It's, oh, here we're looking at Larry Mize.
In 17.
He's at 3 over par. And that's a long way short. Watson at 16 looked to make a good swing there, and all kinds of rebel yells.
That's a big drive.
It was interesting earlier in the week, Greg Norman, we asked somebody if you could get home in 2, and Greg in a practice round hit a driver, then teed a driver up and still couldn't get home. Fred Couples, you hit it a long way. Could you ever get home in 2 there?
No, there's no possible way. But here's Seve putting for par. And as we can see, I mean, everyone, there hasn't been a birdie putt since we've got here.
Putting right into his shadow.
And Vincetti not holding the flagstick in.
So he remains 3 back, but 2 awfully difficult holes to come. And we'll be back with the closing stages of the 87th United States Open. We are certainly going to see the final holes.
I'm told that the only player that's ever reached the 16th and 2 was the legendary Bobby Jones. And considering the equipment, the ball at that time, that's unbelievable.
I don't believe it.
I find it hard to believe too, but I'm sure it happened. It's well guarded. It must have had one of the San Francisco winds with it, but
a gale force.
That's
wind.
right, a big wind.
That's
Now,
Scott Simpson.
Scott Simpson, Fred Couples. How far is this, do you think? This is bordering on what, 150?
I would think so. Maybe right around there, 140, 150, and. Let's see where he's. No, he's gone to the bottom of his bag, so that's where all the short clubs are. I would think he's maybe got an 8-iron.
Well, he's certainly pumped up. There's no question about that. So he's probably allowing for adrenaline flow.
That's right. And this shot is a little bit downwind, as you can see the flag. And I honestly hope he makes a liar out of me, but I just can't see the ball stopping anywhere near the flag. It's just too hard. The green, that is. But that looked like probably an 8-iron. And that's one way of doing it.
That would be hard to imagine any better than that.
No, sir, not at all.
He's looking for his 3rd consecutive birdie here on the backside, and it is a game of inches, isn't it, Fred? Remember that bunker shot that smothered the flag literally and came down? Now he just caught the edge of the rough there just to slow the ball down a bit. And Seve Ballesteros now at 17, a very difficult driving hole. It slopes severely from left to right, and there were a lot of complaints earlier in the week by the players that the fairway was too fast, that the fairway simply couldn't hold the ball.
As we'll see this ball, it's a perfect drive, and it's going to roll right down into the first cut, which is a little unfair because this ball's not going to stop, and it rolls right down there where everyone's been all week, and you get really not a very good lie from there, and you're shooting straight uphill with maybe a 5 or 6 iron, it's just a tough shot to judge. Whereas from the fairway, it'd be a lot easier.
Right up against that collar,
Oh, against
too.
the
We've
collar,
seen
right.
many shots that have been hit from against that collar, giving the players all kinds of fits as we watch Tom Watson back off. Obviously hearing the cheering on such a small property. You get a lot of noise here from adjacent holes that are very disturbing at this stage of the game. Watson obviously sensibly just going to bunt this down there with a long iron.
I would think he's probably got a 2 or 3 iron, and again, you know, it's not how far he hits it, it's just getting it right up the right side of the fairway and hooking it a little.
That's exactly what he's done. Too much, maybe? No.
No, that's perfect.
Perfect.
Yes. Right up the middle.
Well, now we are going to go away for a few moments. We'll be back in just a moment or two.
After birdies at 14 and 15 at the par 5 16th, Scott Simpson one more time, and he has taken sole possession of the lead at 3 under par. He's 2 under on today's round, and all Tom Watson can do is stand back in the 16th and watch what has transpired over the past 3 holes as Simpson continues to put the pressure on Tom Watson. I'm Roger Twibell along with Ben Wright. Fred Couples is sitting with us as we look at Seve Ballesteros now at the very difficult par 4 17th, 428 yards. For the members here at Olympic, this is a par 5. So this course will play to a par 71 the rest of the year. And look at those yawning bunkers to the right of the green. And Seve talking with his brother Vincente, his caddy. Fred, what's the shot to play in?
Well, he's got it uphill probably with a 5 or 6 iron. As we watch Tom Watson again, he's laid it up perfect with a, looks like just a wedge.
Third shot.
Well, he
That's a
got
great
terrific
shot, yeah.
height on that. That was a marvelous shot he played. But he knows that Scott Simpson has birdied it up ahead of him. He saw all that, and really Simpson's in the driving seat since he's ahead now.
Well, Tom's playing in the group right behind. Of course, Tom in the final group of the day, and he loves playing match play, and he doesn't mind to play a game or two on his days off from the regular tour. So I'm sure that Tom is not intimidated in the least bit, and I think he likes to know what's going on in the golf course. I don't know of many golfers that don't want to know what's going on as we look at our leader now, Scott Simpson, at the 17th. And let's see if indeed this is the pivotal hole in this championship.
It looks like he's left it to the right again, which, no, it's their side. I heard some people say hook, but that's perfect. And that's what we've all been complaining about right there. But that's a good spot to hit it.
Interesting enough, you were talking about him being a short hitter. That's the 240-yard
Right.
marker there, which does indicate that he's not as long as some of you people boom.
That's correct. And I would think from there he's got somewhere in the neighborhood of 190 uphill to the pin. And that's a 2 or 3 iron in that hole.
Now Seve Ballesteros up at the green. He knows that he's running out of time. And it looks pretty fair that as we look at the crowd surrounding the 18th green, it's Seve Ballesteros is, as we look at this marvelous setting, the 18th green, what is happening? Ah, thank you. Seve Ballesteros is on the 17th green.
We knew he was out there, Ben. Those other people just didn't.
This is an absolute must for him to have any chance at all. He's got to birdie the last 2 holes.
That's correct.
There you see the situation with Scott Simpson having made that brilliant birdie at the 16th hole. The ball went absolutely dead center into the hole. Here is a look at it again. Now that was the 15th hole, the one that went right round the cup. That was the 15th hole, his birdie there. Now Tom Watson, they're obviously going to show his birdie
at 14.
At 14.
And
which happened within seconds of each other. And now Simpson at the 16th hole, which went absolutely dead center. There was nothing about using the rim there. So Simpson ahead by 1. And now 4 ahead of Seve Ballesteros is Simpson, as we look at Tom Watson with his birdie opportunity coming up pretty soon on the 16th hole, as Simpson strolls to his ball in the first cut of rough at the 17th, and Seve Ballesteros up at the green, knowing he will have seen the leaderboards, knowing that he has to make this putt and birdie the last to have any hope whatsoever, or the Open title will elude him once again.
One of the few players to make par here 3 consecutive days.
And this putt is a good spot to have, but it should break quite a bit to the right and awfully fast, and
that's the whole story of Seve, I'm afraid. His putting under pressure has become downright timid at times. I mean, I think that's fair to say it, because you're judging him by his standards.
That's correct. That, again, you have to look for a better putt from Seve than that, but if he hits it a little too hard, it'll go 8-10 feet by, and now he's got his work cut out for him, whereas Watson, this putt looks like it breaks to the right. A lot of those chip shots from over the green have hung to the left, and it's actually probably a straight putt. But the lake is over to his right, and everyone thinks it breaks to the right. No, it just does not go. It's hard to believe.
You call that very well, Fred. But you see, what I'm saying about Seve, I was being harshly critical of Seve, because he knows he's got to birdie the hole. It doesn't matter if he misses it, if he goes 8 feet by.
No, that's correct. He knows that Watson and Simpson still have to play 17. If he birdies it, that could be a 2-shot swing for him. But now, leaving it short, again, you have to look for a better putt from Seve than that. But if he hits it a little too hard, it'll go 8-10 feet by, and now he's got his work cut out for him. Whereas Watson, this putt looks like it breaks to the right. A lot of those chip shots from over the green have hung to the left, and it's actually probably a straight putt. But the lake is over to his right, and everyone thinks it breaks to the right. No, it just does not go. It's hard to believe.
You call that very well, Fred. But you see, what I'm saying about Seve, I was being harshly critical of Seve, because he knows he's got to birdie the hole. It doesn't matter if he misses it, if he goes 8 feet by.
No, that's correct. He knows that Watson and Simpson still have to play 17. If he birdies it, that can be a 2-shot swing for him. But now, leaving it short, you know, he's got a 6-foot putt with a foot of break for par.
This is for par for Tom Watson to stay 1 shot back of Scott Simpson. And so Watson makes his par. Tom with birdies at 8, 9, and 10. Simpson with birdies at 14, 15, and 16. It's been an interesting Sunday afternoon here at the Olympic Club, and it wasn't too many moments ago, and we were saying it looked like even par, maybe +1 could win this championship, and all of a sudden some hot putters.
And now we hear that Ballesteros actually bogeyed the 17th hole to go to 2 over, and I think we didn't see Bernhard Langer finish, and he finished by missing a very holeable birdie putt and finished at 3 over par. So the European challenge has petered out, and it is an American who is going to win the United States Open, which is usually the case.
It's interesting, in 1955 it came down between 2 men, Jack Fleck and Ben Hogan, 66. Even though Palmer had the 7-shot lead over Billy Casper, it was Casper and Palmer all afternoon, and now from what seemingly was a half a dozen people with a chance to win, once again this championship has started on the 10th hole on Sunday afternoon, and it's Scott Simpson, who's a native of Southern California, went to the University of Southern California, a 3-time winner on the PGA Tour in 9 years, earlier at Greensboro in North Carolina this year, and this his 2nd shot at the par 4 17th.
He's got exactly 188 yards to the hole. That started left. And that's where it stays. He's going to have a tough shot from there. Those shadows are very disconcerting.
Scott has made bogey par at 17 the past 3 days. Fred, is there a more difficult par 4 that you play?
I can't think of one. Again, the problem is the drives. You keep harping on it, but a perfect shot, as Scott's hit earlier in the day, other players have hit, and they roll up there, and you can get into where there's been old divots. And Scott's ball looked like it just turned over into the bunker with a very difficult shot. Now here's a big drive for Tom. He's got to try and hit this fairway somehow.
He'll hook it into the hill, I think.
That's correct.
At 17, Watson has 2 bogeys and 1 birdie, and he's not yet hit the green in regulation in the 3 previous days.
Well, Ben Collett, he's turned this ball over, and I would think that if any stay in, it'll be this one, which it looks like it is, which is a big advantage hitting off of that grass versus the first cut of the rough.
It's amazing how he's driven the ball so perfectly at this 17th hole. He has been, there you see his swing, Fred, in slow motion.
Well, I'm not much of a teacher, but he's got a great setup. And you'll see he'll take it back low to the ground. And I would think that we can see he overswings a little bit, which is great because he makes a huge shoulder turn.
Does he get a little closed at the top?
As you can see, the club's pointing to the sky, yes, which causes hooks. But I'd sure love to hook it like this guy every day. And again, he's got great lower body through the ball, and that's just a great swing at a great possibility to drive it right up the middle.
He's trying to hook the ball, too.
Correct.
I mean,
and you called it. You have to turn it from right to left to keep it in that fairway.
Very powerful forearms and wrists and legs. Well, I know we grew up in Kansas City around the same time. We used to say he had Popeye forearms.
Well, that's
like
what they used to call him. And that's why he's so good out of the rough.
Right.
When he drives it in the rough, he's just so strong that we see all the, I'll say, smaller players are not quite as strong. The club's turning over and the ball's going left. Tom Watson rips it right out of there and knocks it on the green.
That was an aerial view of the 17th hole from that dirigible.
Well, it is just an absolutely gorgeous Sunday afternoon in San Francisco. And there are the 2 principals. Scott Simpson on the right in the bunker at 17 with a 1-shot lead over Tom Watson in the fairway at 17.
Now, how do you read this shot, Freddie?
Well, Scott's a great bunker player, and this is a long shot. The problem here is he's got to place it, I'm going to say, below the pin, which is tough to do. Now, if he hits this a good shot, maybe up where Seve left his first putt, 5 or 6 feet, but then it's a big breaker. So what he's got to do here is, even if it's 10 feet right of the hole, just make sure he leaves it below the pin, which at this stage of the game is not that easy to do. So, you know, he's got that. That's a great shot. Now he's putting up the hill. Even if it's, see, that's what Seve's putt could have done. But as you said, he needed birdie, and that's where it should have been if he didn't make it. And Scott's still got his work cut out for him.
Very nice for Watson to be walking down the fairway, able to watch exactly what is happening as we watch Simpson's marvelous bunker shot. Really opening the face. He really cut that one.
That's a great shot.
Cut the legs off it. Beautiful.
He's begging for it to stop any time, which we've all been doing all week. But that's true. They're not playing slow, but Tom's down the fairway waiting, and he's seeing all this. And, you know, no matter what Scott does, this isn't really the hole to try and conquer. A 4 would be terrific for Tom, and if he makes birdie, all the better.
And we're looking at Lenny Clements, one of the few times we've seen him this afternoon, and Seve Ballesteros at the 18th hole, knowing that he's once again been thwarted in his bid for the United States Open.
Well,
what an agonizing year it has been for him to be beaten in the playoff at Augusta National, and now this.
Well, I like his game, and he's a classy person. I'd certainly like to see him finish with a birdie just for the crowd, too.
He'll have a nice uphill putt.
Ben, how will Seve perform at Muirfield after this performance in the U.S. Open?
I think that Muirfield is made for Seve's game. Absolutely made for it. The bunkers are well stated there. There's nothing hidden. And, well, of course, there's no telling how much growth there will be in the rough. It was a hayfield one time when we played there. I mean, you could lose yourself in the rough.
Well, Tom Watson is back in the fairway waiting now for Scott Simpson. We talked about Watson being able to watch. What about Simpson having Watson watching him?
Well, right now, Scott's enjoying this being one up. But again, he's just worried about really making this putt, obviously, and getting to the next hole. And 18 is a birdie hole, so, and Tom Watson's looking at that. He's figuring that, you know, he's still all right. It's like a basketball game being behind by 3 with a minute left. Tom's got nothing to worry about right now. And Scott's probably feeling all the pressure because he's the one doing all the work right here. And Tom just gets to sit back and watch.
And his concentration, Scott Simpson's concentration, is awesome.
It's marvelous. It's always like this, no matter what he's doing.
That's a tremendous putt.
Now that puts all the pressure, obviously, right back on Tom.
Well, he's had at least 4 one-putt greens in the backside.
Right in a row.
Yes, birdied 14, 15, and 16, and then now a one putt here. That's championship winning stuff, really.
Matter of fact, you've called. He's may have one putted maybe up to 6 so far. He hit the flag on 11
right
in the bunker. In 12, he hit it in the right rough and laid up short and chipped it close. And I believe he hit the 13th green.
Look at Tom. He says that's something else, isn't it? Well, you know, he loves a good battle. I mean, there's no backing off as we look again at this solid, very low hands here, Fred.
Beautiful putting stroke. Just
blade never leaves the ground. It's as smooth as silk, and you know the relief.
Well, will this be a vision of 1955 when Jack Fleck, a rather unknown professional from Davenport, Iowa, crept up on the legendary Ben Hogan looking for his 5th Open championship?
Seve, now we'll see if he can make a decent stroke at this, because the pressure's off him now. He's taken the pressure off himself. He should give this a good rap. I can't believe that putt he hit at 70. That's not the Seve of old. Well, that really wasn't his best either. So that's a I think that's allowed. He does take it very well.
yeah, you got to tip your hat off to him. If every major you finish in the top 5, you get the chances to screw up. And obviously this one, Scott Simpson and Tom have outplayed him the back 9.
Now a crucial shot for Watson. Must hit this on the green somewhere and not above the hole.
How's this weight going to affect Tom, Fred? Because he's been out there for quite some time now.
He's
waiting.
probably been 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. Again, he's taken his club and swung it and put it back in the bag, and now he feels comfortable with the iron he's chosen. And again, you just want to get it left of the pin. It's easy to sit here and say he doesn't want to attack too much, but he's just got to hit another good shot. And obviously he likes it.
When he walks off like that, he likes it.
Yeah. But see, now here he's hit 2 good shots, and this is part of the problem with 17. He's left with really no birdie putt.
Now Scott Simpson at 18. 343-yard par 3, which players have been using an iron on all week.
And that's right down the middle.
I think he was pretty relieved because he's let a few of them go to the right in these last few holes. There you see the leadership situation with the championship to be decided between Scott Simpson and Tom Watson.
And we remember yesterday at 18 when Scott Simpson made birdie there to get himself finally noticed by our colleagues at ABC Sports, and was finally shown. And sometimes it takes something at 18, the day before a final round, just to give you the confidence. As also we see Lenny Clements, his tee shot.
American television is on a break, a commercial break at the moment, so you're not missing any golf coverage while Roger and Fred and I continue to natter on to you. They are away from golf at the moment as Simpson and Clements walk up the final fairway, and Tom Watson behind walks to the 17th green to a towering ovation. Now, a look at that 18th hole graphic, which is apparently on the air in London. Goodness knows, I wish we could see it out here. This hole of 343 yards is played downhill from the tee. The players lay back with irons in to get down onto the flat portion down into the valley and not have a hanging lie, and then have an uphill short iron shot to a tiny narrow green that is extremely heavily bunkered. It's not a great finishing hole. As Frank Hannigan, the executive director of the USGA, agreed with us, it's not a great hole because it's nice to see a United States Open champion have to drive the ball at the 72nd hole, and we've just seen Scott Simpson walking up the 18th hole use an iron, but it's a darn tricky finishing hole.
Well, it really is. The green slopes from the back to the front severely, and as you said, it's very skinny. But I thought the USGA would make the driving area maybe half as wide as they did here, because it is a 2 or 3 iron and an 8 and 9 iron and some 2 iron wedge shots. And like you say, just either that or make the rough deeper on that hole, because coming down the finish, it's just not that tough of a finishing hole.
Freddie, I'm amazed. Here's an American professional suggesting that a USGA fairway should be narrow.
Well, on a hole that's 343, if I were in Scott's shoes coming up here, I wouldn't be playing safe, but I would have probably hit the 4 iron off the tee. And that's just really, to play your last hole leading a U.S. Open, that's really not that big a deal to have to hit a 4 iron and an 8 iron to the green.
Well, the pin is back today at the 18th, and it's been up the previous 3 days, so
Correct.
it gives you a chance to throw it up there. And
to finally fire at the pin and have an uphill putt instead of those downhill slick putts.
And we should say that while the wind is quite strong out there, judging by the trees and the shirt sleeves being tugged, there's an awful lot of shelter down in the bottom there, because the clubhouse and its amphitheater are shielding the players from the wind as Scott Simpson
Right.
goes to the second
Here's
shot.
a great look at it. It's just a real small green. But he's hit every shot the back 9.
That's a sensible one, Freddie.
That's below the pin, and that's definitely makeable. That's 20 feet uphill, and he can close the door on Tom with that putt.
The way he's been putting.
That's
My
right.
goodness.
well, he is going to make Tom Watson earn this championship or take it away from him, because it belongs to Scott Simpson right now, as Simpson waits on his playing partner Lenny Clements, and of course Watson back on the green at 17. Clements at +4 for the championship, had been very consistent, had played rounds of 70, 70, and 70, so he's 4 over on today's round.
And Lenny's looking at, he plays in U.S. Open well every year, and this should get him into the Masters, even if he happens to bogey here, the top 16 in U.S. Open, get back to Augusta, and then I know that's a big thrill for me and Lenny and whoever gets to it.
So Lenny Clements just a little short at 4 over par, but he's certainly going to be in that top 16. At the moment, he's in a tie for 8th place.
We told you a moment ago, as we watched Scott Simpson make his way up to 18, that Tom Watson's 17th hole has been difficult, but he's played 18 very well. He has had a couple of birdies there. And listen to the ovation now, standing ovation at 18 for Scott Simpson. Fred, this is what a young golfer, you know, you dream about this moment, don't you, when you're...
Well, this is very big. I mean, he's got to be just goosebumps. Winning any tournament is fantastic, and coming up to this green, he's probably checking the board right now to see what maybe Tom did on 17. But it's a big thrill.
When you think that one of his wins was at Butler National, which is probably the most difficult course that you professionals play on the United States Tour, he's shown a great strength of character, really.
Westchester, also one of his victories.
That's right, and that was the year they had the U.S. Open at Wingfoot, and he won with heavy, heavy rough. Both courses were close together, up in New York, and they set it up. They set up Westchester Country Club like a U.S. Open, and he won there. And he won at Greensboro this year under tough conditions. So
the worst conditions.
He is a great player, and earlier in the week when Nicklaus said a plotter would win, if Scott Simpson wins, then you could definitely call him a plotter.
But you can't say that of Tom Watson. And really, Fred, he's got a very difficult putt here.
He's got a big putt. You know, if he happens to hit a great putt here, it could get him some momentum going to 18, which I'm sure he doesn't need. But again, you know, he's hit 2 good shots on probably the toughest hole of the course, and now he's got a 2-putt, which, as we just saw Seve, is no easy task.
If it gets away from him, it's going to gather pace.
Right. If it gets away, the tournament's probably over. But if he hits a putt like this,
oh boy, that's a tough one.
I was wondering. He's looking up at the sky right now. I don't know.
I think he may be looking at the blimp, maybe, overhead.
Well, maybe there's one of the hang gliders that lost track. But anyway, looking up above, I'm wondering if he was thinking making that at 17 or trying to make birdie at 18, where he's made a couple of birdies so far in this championship.
Well, he's birdied 18 twice, and I would think that, you know, as he hit this putt, now he's got a little 4-footer that breaks pretty hard to his right. And we all know he needs to make this just to have a chance to tie Scott.
When you think of those he's missed over these last 3 years, this has got to be absolutely a soul-searching moment for him.
Well, you're right. He's won a lot of tournaments. He's got a lot of guts, and you know, right now he's in a good frame of mind just to knock this in and go to the next hole.
Going to the well again.
And you can see how far left he's aiming to that hole. And that's fantastic.
That's pure guts. That was a very courageous putt.
Whether he's looking to the heavens for some sort of help, or whether there's something that's distracting him, but the gap-toothed smile of Tom Watson evident there as he moves to 18, and of course Scott Simpson on the green at 18. And we should say that first place here, besides the honor that goes with being the U.S. Open champion, also gives you $150,000 for winning this. But the money is really secondary to the honor of being this Open champion.
And it's secondary to what you can get from the victory. But it's the victory itself that's the only thing that matters, Fred, isn't it, really?
A tournament like this, everybody, you know, they could probably play this tournament for no money, and the same people would play. It's just, you know, it's the #1 tournament that we have, and of course the British Open is right there too, which, looking ahead for Tom Watson as well as he's playing, this could be a big boost for him the rest of the year.
Now this, if he makes it, the championship is virtually his. He won't make it.
No, but
good putt though.
Sure is. The people, it's straight uphill, and you just cannot hit the putt 2 feet by because you feel like you're hammering it, and it's just one of those deals. As we see, Lenny's chipped it a little short.
Well, Scott Simpson will have that for a 2 under 68, and to remain at 3 under par and put the burden of this championship on the shoulders of Tom Watson. And will there indeed be a 3rd consecutive Monday playoff at Olympic for a United States Open championship? Once again, in '55 it was Ben Hogan and Jack Fleck. In '66 it was Arnold Palmer and Billy Casper. And will it be Tom Watson and Scott Simpson in 1987? Preparations have been made as Watson and Keith Clearwater go to the tee at the 18th.
We haven't seen much of Keith, but he's at 4 over par, and after his totally disastrous start, I think he deserves an awful lot of credit. He's definitely going to finish, bar a major accident, in the top 10. But now, this is the most vital shot that Watson will play from any tee for a long time, because if he is to miss the fairway to the right, it's then the trees come into play, as they did with Nakajima yesterday. And
that's correct. He's just got to make another good swing and hit this fairway to have any kind of chance at all. And I think he's waiting to see really what Scott's done. I don't know why.
Well, I imagine when he taps in, there's going to be quite a roar that
that's
goes
right.
up at 18. So, hey, that's a wise play by a veteran.
That's right.
If it was a young man who's never been in a situation like that before, without thinking, he might go ahead and step up. And this is now for par for Scott Simpson, a round of 68. And he maintains his one-shot lead.
And that's a fantastic round in any tournament, and to come through the U.S. Open with a 68.
Well, I think he should be really proud of himself, even if he has to go to a playoff, because he's shown he's a short hitter by any standards, and he's shown incredible skills to get it round this golf course the way he has. Now, Tom Watson.
Oh,
And that's big.
If it stops right now.
that's right. He's just got probably a wedge, which hopefully he'll throw it back to the pin.
Now the all-important business of signing the scorecard correctly, and let it be known that there have been an occasion or two when a championship has been lost. And there is young Keith Clearwater. Fred, he took 5 years to finally get his card. Played in Europe, played in Asia a little bit, played on the TPA, the mini tour, where he actually led with winning over $100,000 this last year. But as Ben mentioned, his back-to-back 64s on a hot Sunday in Fort Worth, Texas, that was a remarkable feat earlier this year.
Well, that was a big breakthrough and a quick one. I mean, that was probably not even half, as U.S. Open's halfway through our year. He won like 5 or 6 weeks ago on a great course. And I would say he's like Bob Tway, who took 4 or 5 years to get out here. And then the year Bob Tway had last year, he could very well do the same thing this year.
And in fact, just over a year ago, Keith Clearwater was playing on the TPA Tour, and he played in Lake City, Florida, at the Lake City Country Club. And he beat Seve in a TPA event when Seve was banned from the tour in that 1 year that he was excluded from competition here. So he's come an awful long way in just over a year. And I think he again deserves enormous credit, although he's now only playing a supporting role.
Well, Keith Clearwater, the young man in the blue sweater, leading the way, and there's Tom Watson also in the light blue sweater. Tom has been in position before on the 72nd hole of a championship, and the fact that he's made a par and 2 birdies here, Fred, has got to give him a boost coming to this hole, getting by the 17th where he hasn't fared too well, making his first par, as a matter of fact, in this championship.
Well, I would think he definitely feels comfortable. Anytime you play a hole, you know, 2 out of 3 days under par, you know, you just feel good about it. And coming in here, he knows he's got a birdie, and he's saying, hey, I birdied it 2 other times. You know, I got to do it again. And if there's anyone that can do it, it's probably him.
If there is indeed a playoff, it will be 18 holes tomorrow at the Olympic Club.
Which, again, is what Seve, getting back to Seve, has talked about. He thinks that if you've played 72 holes and tied someone, that you shouldn't rush out and play a playoff hole and hit 1 bad shot and lose. He figures you should be able to play another 18.
There's the scene from above in the Goodyear blimp as the crowd is allowed to encroach onto the 18th fairway, but a long way behind the players, which is rather a pleasant gesture. Here they come, the cavalry charge. Isn't that a magnificent sight? A natural amphitheater, and Keith Clearwater will play first and will be obviously now, with due respect to Tom Watson, trying to just keep out of his way. There we see a correction on his score. He's suddenly
Must have taken a triple bogey at the 17th.
Well, we certainly didn't see it. Well, this is not the finish that we'd hoped for Keith Clearwater. The last we saw of him, he was 4 over par, so we can only assume that he had got into terrible trouble at 17.
Fred, that appears to be a fairly level lie, and one of the problems with this 18th hole is it is a bit of downhill, and you can be faced with a downhill lie to an uphill green.
Correct, and the ball just never gets to its full height, and it comes up short. Again, it's just a hole where par is a good score, but if you get uphill putt, you can make birdie. And here's Tom. He's got to be aggressive and get it back to the flag somehow and just hit enough club.
He knows what he's got to do.
Yeah, see, that's...
Oh, he's not done it. I would say that he'll be very, very lucky to birdie this hole.
Well, kind of a disappointing effort for Tom Watson at the 72nd hole of this championship, with Scott Simpson holding a one-shot lead. Tom is at level par on today's round, but got off to an atrocious start. Just the par 5 first hole, where you expect to make birdie, he made bogey, but getting a very warm round of applause here from the crowd at the Olympic Club.
It's a long time since Tom Watson has walked up to the 18th green to that kind of ovation, too. It's been 3 diabolical years for him since his last victory when he beat Greg Norman in the playoff for the Western Open. And I know, I've talked to him, that he has wondered if he would ever get it back. And he must be all right. He may face defeat here, but he must be extraordinarily encouraged.
Watson.
Yeah, well, I'm still smiling. No, I'm just really happy to be here. I had one of those days where one of the best putting rounds of my life, and that's what it takes to shoot under par out here, because you can't go for that many pins. So I made a lot of really good putts, and I'm just really thankful to the Lord just to be here.
Does one of the best putting rounds of your life make for one of the best days of your life?
Definitely. You know, it would be a big thrill to win. Tom hasn't pulled out yet, but to win the U.S. Open, geez, I can't imagine anything better than that. This would be a dream come true for me.
Well, you've had the dream of walking up the 18th fairway. You had the reality of it. Now together we'll watch Tom Watson. Jim?
And there's a look from above at the 18th at the Olympic Club in San Francisco, California, on what's turned out to be a splendid day after early morning fog and a little bit of rain. And along with Ben Wright, I'm Roger Twibell. Fred Couples, the Byron Nelson champ, has been alongside of us, as we've certainly enjoyed from the very first day this 1987 United States Open. That's provided us a lot of thrills, as this young man, Keith Clearwater, now his 3rd shot.
And Watson will watch this very carefully. You can see him doing so. You know, he's got the same general area of the green. Awfully hard to get the ball up to the hole. We haven't seen too many players able to do it.
Well, I think if Keith decides to forego his golf career, the movies might be in order. Nice looking guy. And there's
Huge
some of the
crowd.
I've got to feel there's more than 25,000 people here. I think maybe 35 to 40,000 would be more in order.
That is, as far as the crowd and the beauty, the 18th hole here is fabulous. Everyone sits up there and roots hard and yells and screams, and they're all waiting for this putt either to go in or not. But as you said, Tom Watson has had to have enjoyed this day, starting out bogey and making a great par 3. Got him back in the tournament, and then some of the birdies at back 9, and he's just a little unfortunate here.
We should go back to 1982 at Pebble Beach at the 17th hole, when he had a seemingly impossible shot. He told his caddy, Bruce Edwards, that he was going to put it in, and he did indeed pitch it in to defeat Jack Nicklaus and win that Open Championship. You have to think that anything is possible. And this tandem right here, they've worked very well together throughout the years, and the caddy's a very important part of a outstanding player's game. As Scott Simpson watches.
How do you read this putt, Freddie? It's coming from the right.
Well, there's a little hill about 6 feet in front of him, which it's going to come over, and it should go left. I would say he's got to swing it up out the shadow of the flag, which he has, and it's got a chance. It's,
gosh,
boy, that's some kind of putt.
You couldn't give it a braver roll.
Just could not get there.
Scott, now with the pressure finally all off, tell me what it's like for you, having worked for 9 years on the tour and struggled for many, many moments, to now have golf's grandest championship.
I don't know. It's it's hard for me to even imagine. You know, I've always wondered whether I'd be good enough to win something like this. And you know, my #1 reason for playing the tour was just to make a living for my family. And win something like this is just a dream come true. I mean, it's going to be a long time before it really sinks in.
I know you're the type of man who appreciates the type of support your family gives you for moments like this.
Yeah, I got my wife just over here somewhere, and be ready to give her a hug and a kiss, that's for sure.
Your putting today was absolutely marvelous in very, very tense situations, including on the 16th green we're going to get a chance to watch. You had just come off another green where you had putted equally well, and you were one of the few golfers today who had a hot putter.
Yeah, I really don't know why. I was just concentrating on making a smooth stroke today, and for some reason they just kept going in. I just kept hitting them where I was in. I made some great putts in there. It was one of those things, you know.
Now, since you've never won a U.S. Open, you don't know what the clubs feel like when you're supposed to win. You don't know what your walk is supposed to feel like. But did you feel something special? Did you feel like something was happening and building for you?
Yeah, it was tremendously exciting, to say the least. The fans were going crazy on every hole, cheering for, you know, I could hear them cheering for Tom in back of me and cheering for me. And, yeah, I didn't look at the leaderboard till the 17th hole because I didn't want to be thinking about anything other than just playing the best that I could, playing up to my ability.
You were never figured in the master scheme of those who prognosticate and profess to know who might win championships like this. Today, very few people placed attention on you, even with you right atop the leaderboard. Did that help take some of the pressure off?
I suppose it does. I was asked before the tournament started, Ryder came up to me and said, how many guys do you think could win this tournament? And I said, I think there's 50 or 60. And he says, come on. He says, Payne Stewart was in there and said 12 guys could win. And I said, well, I can think of, you know, a lot of guys. How about Keith Clearwater, you know? And, yeah, I think there's a lot of players capable of winning. And it's a thrill to win it, too.
Perhaps you can look at your father through the magic of our television screen and tell him exactly what you'd like to say. I know he played a big role in what you're achieving today.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here without my dad. And he enabled me to start golf, and I was really blessed to just be able to play golf. A lot of people aren't so lucky, and I just love the game, and just tell my dad I love him. I really do.
In the 4 days that this whole tournament took place, did you communicate with him? Did he tell you how proud he was?
Actually, I didn't. I talked to my mom, and my dad was playing. He probably would have been up here, but he's playing trumpet in a couple jobs this weekend, and he told me, he said, you know, this course should be built for your game. So I'm sure I'll probably be talking to him tonight a little bit.
And in 4 days, you never once thought of the money you would win?
No, I didn't. I've been really fortunate to have my best year ever so far. So, you know, the money isn't the big problem right now, so it takes a little of pressure off. And I was just, the last 2 weeks, this is my 6th week in a row, and the last 2 weeks, I found myself getting upset and angry at times when things didn't go my way. And so my only goal this week really was to, you know, just live up to the way the Lord says to get out there and play golf, which would be just do your best and accept whatever the result was. And so I was really content this week to just do my best, and I never lost my patience, never got upset once, which, you know, is the real key for me to a tournament like this, where you're going to get bad breaks and bad lies and things.
Scott, congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay.
It's interesting to note that Scott Simpson said he didn't look at the leaderboard, as you see his wife right there, until the 17th, when even though he had a great putting back nine, by our count 6 one-putt greens, he came up with maybe his best shot of the championship, that shot out of the bunker, Fred, at the 17th to save par on the most difficult hole in this golf course. And so maybe he knew at that time what the pressure was, and then reached down inside to find out what he was made of. And obviously he's made of championship stuff.
He certainly did. The whole day, as you pointed out earlier, is brought down the back nine, and Scott and Tom both pulled away from the field. As you can see, the scores right here, Tom finishing birding 3 holes of back nine, and Scott birding 3 holes too, and 3 and 2 under was the way they finished. And Tom gave it a great effort on 18 to try and tie, but Scott is a great champion.
I think Jack Nicklaus, a lot of people thought he was talking baloney on the eve of the championship when he said a plodder would win, and it certainly looked that way for 2 rounds with that pedigree leaderboard. But now, I think it's not demeaning to say that Scott Simpson is a plodder, and the course was tailor-made for him. And I think all credit to Jack Nicklaus for being a fair prophet.
And being very honest, and that's not taking anything away at all from Scott Simpson in his play and what Jack Nicklaus had to say about the fact that a plotter would win this championship. And so we come to the end of the 1987 United States Open, and Scott Simpson is victorious by 1 shot over Tom Watson, and for Scott Simpson, his first major victory of his 9-year career. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the 1987 United States Open from the Olympic Club in San Francisco, California. We'd like to thank ABC for their pictures and Fred Couples for joining us for Channel 4 commentary.